Evening, everyone. This is a caucus of the Jersey City Municipal Council. Today is Monday, December 11th in the year 2017. My first iPhone, which I am going to try to silence, which I did silence, says it's 5:39 p.m. At roll call, Councilperson Gajewski.
Yep, yeah.
Councilperson Gadsden. Here. Councilperson Baggiano. Yeah. Councilperson Yun.
Yes, I'm here.
Councilperson Osborne is absent as of yet. Councilperson Robinson is here. Councilman Rivera is here. Councilperson Waterman is here, and we have the council president here. So you have 8 in attendance at 5:39.
Okay. Thank you, Robert.
Could I just say something?
Let me start off the evening, and then actually it's for you, Rich. So I would acknowledge you and say the runoff elections are completed. Congratulations to Councilman Baggiano on his victory, and we want to also say tonight, as this will be the final caucus meeting for Councilman Gadsden, Gajewski, and Osborne, who's not here, but say, was she here? No. Say thank you for your service to Jersey City and to the City Council. And we'll repeat this on Wednesday as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah? Great. All right, Councilman Baggiano.
I just want to say something in honor of Pat Stamato, Army sunk Navy.
I want to say something in honor of Pat Stamato. Your department killed the front steps. They did such a good job, it's unbelievable.
Good job.
For very little money, I know the courthouse paid to have their steps redone. They really look good. They did a great job.
Bob, where are you, Bob?
Please say $5.
Make a note of that, Bob.
Yes. Thank you, sir. No, they killed it.
Okay, which was the item?
This relates to resolution. I don't have my agenda out. Do we know the number? Anybody?
What?
Resolution
In your mind.
for the renewal of the contract related to the Dan Reardon. What do you guys try?
With all the professional services towards the end of the agenda. And that is going to be Z22, Resolution 10Z22.
So we have today with us Scott Carbone, who is from our labor and employment group with the city, and we also have outside counsel, Mr. Daniels, who is a partner with the law firm Bud Lerner. Bud Lerner has been on the file for about 2 years. This is a renewal of the contract. It is an employment matter, and it's been a protracted case, which we have discussed with this body before, both in open and in closed session. You guys asked to address some questions on this issue in open session. We have not sunshined a closed session, but I do want to inform this body that it is active litigation and it relates to employment matters. So it's going to be limited as to the conversation we can have in open session. And with that, I open it up for questions.
Can I just have the spelling of your name so when you begin talking?
Sure.
Daniels, D-A-N-I-E-L-S.
Last name is Daniels.
Yes.
Well, Councilman Waterman.
Who wanted this session with them?
I just had to have some attorneys available to answer questions if it came up. What's that? Yeah, we'd have to have an executive session to, but if there were questions that they could answer that didn't require executive session. So we're looking at Z22. Are there any questions related to this professional service agreement? Any? No?
I mean, what are we going to ask?
So why don't you ask the question, and if it has to be in the closed session, then we'll.
$220,000 now. We pay $100,000 last time, now increase 120. So seems like a case is very serious case. Past 2 years, we gotta pay the lawyer. Law firm is $20,000.
That's a great
What is
question.
that?
So we have been at
Don't say great question. Answer, give me.
It's a good question, Councilman. You know, I give credit where credit's due. But we have spent a significant amount of money on this litigation, and keep in mind that our hourly rate is set. So we do that at $150 an hour, whether we have an associate on or someone as experienced as Mr. Daniels, who we're very fortunate to have handle this case. He's one of the best employment lawyers in the state. And I'm going to turn it over to them to talk about a little bit about why this case has gotten to this point.
So I think the direct answer to your question is that the plaintiff's counsel in this is a very difficult guy, a very litigious guy, and everything has been very difficult. We also came into this case recently, and we were brought into this case in May after the case had been dormant for about a year, and there was a really compressed time schedule for doing the discovery. So we had a lot of documents to exchange. We had in the past few months 10 or 12 depositions. There was very, very significant motion practice, and because everything was because the case had lain dormant for a while, we had a trial date. The court insisted on a very, very compressed time schedule. We did an awful lot in a very short period of time with a very difficult plaintiff's attorney who basically fought us every step of the way. So that's why the expenses that were incurred during the time during this time period have been as significant as they are.
Is Dan seeking like a huge settlement? We don't know what settlement's going to look like in this case. Obviously, anything that is settled on this case would come before this body. We're not sure we're going to settle this case. It's a complicated case.
You're spending a lot of money on, like, if someone, is suing for a lot, you spend a lot of money to fight it.
So to put it in perspective, for an employment case of this nature, we actually haven't spent a lot of money. It's a lot of money for us because, maybe I'll let someone else say it, but the law department has done a fairly effective job of keeping our costs down. But for an employment case of this nature, this is not a lot of money.
Is it employment case? Yes. I'm not familiar with
So
it.
if you want to just say what the claims are?
What kind of employment
Just
case
say
is
what the factual, the
Yeah,
legal claims are.
it's an employment discrimination case. Mr. Reedon is claiming that he was discriminated against because he's gay, and that certain things that the city did were in retaliation for him exercising his rights.
Still, we have that kind of case in Jersey.
Those kinds of cases happen with all employers, and we've been dealing with them regularly from every department. Anytime an employee has an employment action they don't agree with of any nature, there's a chance that employee will raise some form of reason other than pure employment management as to why that action they don't like took place.
Let me ask you this. Maybe this is not the legal case, but when I see that there's a city employee cases that, City of Jersey is a city clerk Robert did a great job. Mm-hmm. We have several seminars regarding for the discrimination regarding the race and sex whatsoever. We give to as a city side a full educational time to educate employee self already. But because of certain director's wrongful act, whatever the case is that, and the City of Jersey, end of the day, paid those kind of dollars, and whatever we pay the lawyer fee, we're going to claim that the employee or director of the department reimbursed that their court fee, anything like that?
So we're actually obligated by statute to cover the litigation costs for our employees when they are doing something in the course of their business. So no, we wouldn't be doing that, nor would we really be able to do that in most cases. There are a specific subset of cases where if someone broke the law or acted ultra-virus or outside the scope of their employment where we could look at that. This isn't one of those cases. But I would say to you, what we do to control our costs is the city is self-insured, and we look to mitigate our risk by taking on excess insurance policies. This case has an excess insurance policy. I don't know if, Scott, if you want to touch a little bit on that.
Yeah, sure. So there's an excess policy in this case, or another way to describe that is in a traditional insurance situation, this is a case where there'd be a very large deductible, which means we would pay, in this case, it's $250,000. The city would pay the first $250,000 of costs in the case. And now if that's attorney defense costs, or if that's costs of a settlement or costs of a judgment, and then beyond that, the excess carrier would be responsible for any kind of payments, I believe up to about $5 million. So we're sort of in that area right now as far as that goes. So we've been keeping the excess carrier in the loop, advising him sort of where we are on the case, I would say probably on a weekly basis. And coming up in the near future, I would say those discussions will intensify as we talk about settlement or trial.
So in other words, the city of Jersey, we have umbrella package for if any, that the lawyers fee more than $250,000, the umbrella package cover for us, right?
It's not lawyers' fees, any costs related to the suit. We have any costs at all, whether, any costs. We're on the hook for the first $250,000, and then above that, our excess policy kicks in for up to, I think it's the next $1 million. We have different policies for different time periods, but this one I think goes up to $5 million. And then if it goes above $5 million, which this case is not anticipated to do, we would be on the hook again. So we're at a point right now with this renewal of the contract, we will have effectively exhausted our exposure in the case, and then really the insurance company kicks in after that. Okay.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, thank you. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bernadette?
Have a good night.
You're up. Bernadette has 10Z5. Z5.
You get the comfy chair.
NZ5 is the resolution authorizing the award of a contract to Lenovo US Incorporated for the purchase and delivery of desktop computers and monitors under state contract for the Department of Administration, Division of Information Technology.
Say anything about this, Bernadette?
This is the first phase of our replacement program. We are moving away from leased machines to machines that we would control the inventory of and the placement and the refreshment rate for. The long-term goal of the plan is to replace 20% of our inventory every year so that we have a stable replacement year over year, and manage the inventory and who gets the computers so that we get new computers every 2 to 3 years for people who are very technically savvy, and then people who are less savvy would still get a new computer to them, although it would have been used for 2 years prior to that. Yes.
I always have a problem. You know, I always call you.
Yes.
I always call you, I have a problem.
I've used this same program in other organizations in the past, and effectively we skyrocket our rates of satisfaction with the equipment because people are getting the right type of equipment for their skill set.
So then let me ask this one. So the current time we have a rental program for our PC. Yes. So how many PC we rent? How much it costs for the city of Jersey now?
We're currently renting 800.
800 PC, okay?
Yes.
How much it costs for?
I don't have the exact amount of the rental, I'm sorry. It's several $100,000 a year. Several hundred thousand.
We're going to need that number for.
Okay. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Another one is that we're going to spend the $418,000 to purchase 400 PC. When I see that specification, do they have no hardware? I don't know, maybe I'm not that smart. When I see that specification, Intel i7, very updated 3.6, 8 megabyte, I think that's graphic, right?
Right.
And the 8.0 gigabyte, and the 256 GB SSD. What do you mean is that? And also they say DVDR, whatever that, 4 years on site NBD. What is stand for NBD?
Next business day. That's our warranty for hardware, yes, sir.
How many years? 4 years?
4. With the idea that it's a 5-year replacement plan, so we typically, if there was a problem in that 5th year, that's the year the equipment would be going out of service anyway, so we don't pay for an extra year of warranty. Usually we will be able to keep the equipment beyond the 5 years, sometimes even to 6 years, and that's just a case of managing the inventory.
Okay, all right, so probably we need another 400 more, I guess, right?
Yes, sir.
So total cost was to guess like around $830,000.
Yes.
And 830,000 divided by 5 years, how much is it? $160,000 a year. So make sure that our renting cost for the 800 computer is less than $160,000 a year, correct?
And it's approximately the same, but I will tell you that over time, part of the reason why we're spending so much right now is because in addition to the CPUs, we're also leasing monitors. And so this is a replacement for both computers as well as monitors, but monitors typically have a longer lifespan and we don't need to replace them as frequently. So then what happens is after this initial purchase to get into a stable replacement plan, the costs will be less than leasing because we won't be buying monitors all the time. We'll just be buying CPUs. Well, it'll be a mixture, but we'll be able to buy substantially fewer monitors in the future.
So the price already included the NVIDIA next business day service, right? No extra charge. Okay, good luck. Thank you. What is this?
Okay, Councilperson Osborne, any comment on this? You just walked in, no? Your expertise in IT and no?
I feel we're very well represented.
Great.
Are you sure?
I am.
This is the last document you're going to be signing.
I love Councilman Michael Yen.
Oh, 5 pages. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Bernadette. Okay, Director Flanagan. Director Flanagan has 2 items. We'll start with the resolution, I think, 10G.
Of the Municipal Council of the City of Jersey City, accepting a grant and authorizing the execution of a grant agreement with the Hudson County Department of Health and Human Services Office of Aging.
So this is annual renewal of our food and nutrition programs. This covers about 60% of the total costs to run these programs, and CSBG covers the other component. This is Meals on Wheels, this is congregate meals, this is food and nutrition education, in addition to senior activities. So it is also a small portion is Division of Senior Affairs.
What is it, 10G?
Great job. We actually got a significant more money in socialization from the county this year. They were extremely impressed with the new direction of the division. And while we have less money in Meals on Wheels, it's mostly because we're not finding a lot of seniors that are interested in the program. Many more seniors are living with extended family and are not homebound. So we're doing a lot more activities, so we're spending a lot more of our money on things like Tai Chi and yoga and line dancing and such, from the Bethune to Grace and all the other centers in between.
Okay, so can I ask a question? So this total project costs us around $1.4 million, right?
It's about 1.8. And we match the funds. It's a federal requirement. We always match the funds, and where we go first. About 1.8. It's not just Meals on Wheels and congregate meals. It's all things we do. Yeah.
This issue we bring up the last time, the Meals on Wheels program, they have some, I don't know other people as well, but my office get the numerous complaints about the senior, the Meals on Wheels quality service of the especially quality meal itself. And the last time, actually, I asked the same questions that the city of Jersey and your department should be contacted, do at least a survey to the senior to how satisfied that the Meals on Wheels stuff.
And doing that and making edits, and we just hand it in and we can share with you the edits to the menus, not just Meals on Wheels menus, but the congregate meals to make them healthier and align with the 1/3 RDA, which is required as part of the program. I think, just so you know, the amount of money it costs to run Meals on Wheels, because not only do we have, most cities run this as a volunteer organization, and we run it with union staff that get a standard increase every year. And so just our drivers, the cost of our drivers and the materials that we need is well over $200,000 a year just before we even buy the food. Pretty standardly, we've reached out and tried to encourage new food corporations to bid for this contract. And this contract is every 3rd year. It goes up for an open bid. We've been meeting regularly with the Meals on Wheels team, especially under the new direction of Angela Davis, who's the new division director for food and nutrition that we created in January. And she has been like the driving force behind like the healthier food options. So we are required by the county to do a menu assessment twice a year to see like the salt and what are people interested in eating, what are they not eating, how can we make better deliveries, and we've been making some changes related to that.
We understand. But the other hand, the services, some senior actually complained that they get the breakfast, didn't deliver it till 11 a.m. That is a very late.
Staff that call out sick, and when staff call out sick, I don't have any other staff to go make a delivery because they're union employees and they have a specific job title. So what I do is I have to have the 2 staff that are there that go to 300 houses in a day have to take on half of the other person's home. So then we call to all the seniors and we tell them, you know what, we're not going to be there at 8:30 because somebody called out sick or someone's on vacation. The way these grants are, we don't have spare staff at the health department to just like jump in and get in a car and drive a route around the city delivering meals. And so sometimes I'm at the same place where there are 3 drivers. So
do we have a plan to do? Last year you promised to us, this city council, you're going to do some kind of survey to senior about. Do you plan to do that this year?
Yes.
Right?
Angela's working on it now. Mm-hmm.
Okay, please.
So no surveys within this year?
Not this year. We've only done the internal actual food survey, and now we go around and ask people like what they like, what they don't like.
Still we complain, the senior complain that they have 1 week, twice macaroni cheese.
No, they might tell you that, but it might be that they've not. It's not true. We don't even serve macaroni and cheese, and so I can share with you what the menus are. Every single senior gets a milk, a fruit. We deliver either 5 meals for a week to a home or 7 meals per week to a home. We deliver them all at the same time because they're frozen, they're flash frozen, and they can be microwaved or cooked in an oven if someone doesn't own a microwave. But we don't serve macaroni and cheese. So I know you continue to say that. We don't. We're not allowed to serve anything twice within an 11-day period. That's the federal law. And so
Complaints, another one.
But my staff check this stuff every delivery to make sure what we're getting in a delivery.
I take the word what you say, but also I take the word what the seniors complain. So please, they should be time to do some survey, that we find out exactly what's going on, okay? All right.
Is there, thank you for everything that you've done. Is there any help or benefit to you to the extent that we can get volunteers to supplement or no?
Because that's against the union.
It's against the law?
Yeah.
Okay, got it, okay.
So yeah, most of my staff have been there a long time. They get 5 weeks vacation. So the 15 weeks of the year with 3 drivers, there's gonna be days that people are late. I mean, it's just the story of the, yeah. Well, then we need to, there's no money in the grant to do that. So then we need to decide to increase the budget. And if you do that, we would love more staff everywhere.
Before the Director Flanagan leaves, she's also here for, if anyone has questions on a second reading item, 4D. 4D, the Adopt-A-Lot Community Gardens. If you have questions, say your piece now, or...
No, it's just a renewal. Bob, you might want to chime in on this one, just so... Okay, all right, good.
Actually, I'll make one comment. I think we received a comment from one of the constituents about the lot, I think it was on Garfield Avenue. It's not necessarily as open to the community as, or accessible to the community. Broader, it's kind of a, they said, it's kind of closed off, right? So,
Yeah,
I'm happy to share more information with you.
It was closed off for a portion of this year because of a tick issue. But the key is with several people in the community, and we will make sure that they're aware of that in the new year. So.
Director, I just want to say thank you on behalf of Character Enrichment Society. The kids over there, they really truly appreciate what you do, and the homeless population at Revolving Door. Thank you. Keep up the great work. Happy holidays.
You too.
What did you drink?
Director Kears, who has a couple of items. He has to make it to another engagement. So he has 10I. Am I reading that right? 10I?
That's a resolution authorizing accepting a grant award from the Federal Emergency Management Association, FEMA, on behalf of the United States Department of Homeland Security Port Security Grant Program. It's 10I.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. I'm here to speak on the acceptance of a port security grant by the Department of Public Safety in the amount of $19,600 for the use by the Jersey City Police Emergency Services Unit. And that will support training, equipment, and associated items.
Was the $19,000?
It's equipment associated with emergency service operations, anything from rappelling equipment to specialized ropes, saws, whatever they may need, Councilman. Ask for more?
Yeah.
We did ask for more, but this is what they gave us.
Okay, next item is 10Z. Is that Z?
10Z is a contract to Millennium Communications for the purchase and integration of CCTV video security cameras under Government Services Administrative Contract for the Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, funded through the fiscal year 17 Urban Area Security Initiative Grant, UASI.
This particular item will be Phase 2. You may recall at the last grant year, 2016, we funded cameras at 9 locations. Director Shea and myself and members of the staffs are utilizing the city ComStat information as also the shooting maps and crime maps that we've been dealing with. This time, we'll be putting cameras at Winfield and Ocean, Bartholomew and Ocean, Fulton and Ocean, Lexington and Bergen, Bayview and Garfield, Monticello and Belmont, Monticello and Brinkerhoff, Monticello and Jewett, Monticello and Gardner, and Dwight and Ocean. It's funded through the 2017 UASI dollars in the amount of $355,000.
Councilman Rivera, then Councilman Oceana, then Councilman Gates.
Can that be amended for more in terms of more cameras?
What we do, Councilman, is dedicate X amount of dollars per year as we move around, as I say, the cameras are, the areas of location basically on active crime. You know, we've had quite an uptick in the activity around the city, and based on what our current information is that these areas would probably benefit best with having video surveillance cameras.
What about John Square? You know, I said to somebody very high in this police department about crime. He says, "Oh, what crime?" Come into Journal Square. There's murders. We've had a lot of problems. I think some recognition as to what cameras should start going into Journal Square.
Well, what we're doing, Councilman, is we'll certainly take that into consideration for the next year UASI money.
Randy, you could take the statistics and show them.
And this camera.
Councilman Gadsden and Councilman Gill.
I just have a quick question. But pertaining to the hotspots, the 6, 7, 8, 9, they're relatively like a couple of feet away from each other. Like is there a way to kind of like spread like 2 of them into like another designated area? Like they're like on top of each other with the cameras.
Which locations are you talking?
6, 7, 8, 9. They're all
6, 7, 8, 9. Like Belmont,
Street after street
right
after
next
street.
to Gardner, Jewett is just a couple of hop, skips, and the jumps away. It's like it's a waste of all that equipment. That 2 of them could be spread like into another location.
Well, actually, we've gone away from the pan, tilt, zoom operations. These would be 4 cameras, north, east, south, and west at each location. That's something we can certainly consider with the engineering study. That's something Director Shea would have to make the decision on.
Well, Director, I'm happy that they're there.
Yep.
And I just told Rich I'm gonna trade my crown for his.
I wanted to trade him for another council person.
Wait, we're gonna heavyweight that one on the first ballot.
That's right, he was a
Councilperson Osborne?
heavyweight.
I'm sorry, Councilman Ewing, you had.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, this camera is a fixed cameras, not.
Yes.
It's a fixed cameras.
4 each direction, north, south, east, west.
And how about distance? How many?
These are digital cameras with low light capabilities, so there's a significant amount of area that'll be covered with them. We've had great success with the previous batch we did on the phase 1. As a matter of fact, in speaking to some of the officers assigned to the violent crimes unit, the cameras we had put up in the area in Stegman and Bergen resulted in significant gun arrests within the first couple of weeks of them being put in place. So, as I say, they have the ability to view them in the field. So if they're setting up operations and things of that nature, the cameras are really a very valuable tool for the officers doing the work on the street.
So let me ask you this. When we put in the first time in CCTV camera in Jersey City, one of the functions the CCTV camera has that if we have a gunshot, the cameras, they detect the noise right away. They turn the camera at the sound area right there. But this camera, if we have a gunshot, they can zoom that area. Something that kind of function is available.
The technology is not included in this, and these are all stationary cameras. They don't have that pan, tilt, zoom capability. Many of the crimes that we've seen with the PTZ cameras is that if they're moved from one location to another, you panned and tilted, whatever, many times it doesn't actually catch the crime being committed. So I think in using cameras that are stationary, it allows us to give us full 24/7, 24 view of the locations. But the shot, I know the technology you're speaking of, the old cameras, don't forget, the system came in place in approximately 2002. Analog cameras, which really doesn't have the capabilities as the digital cameras now. As they go into replacing the cameras, as I say, we're finishing phase 2, hope to do phase 3 with the federal money. You know, that's something I'm quite sure that they can take into consideration. The cameras we are using, they're stationary. You need what they call PTZ capabilities, pan, tilt, zoom. So when if they call it shot shooter, if they hear that, the camera would tilt. But that's something you can still do that with a single independent camera added to these locations.
But at least, you know, if the camera is not the pen, but at least when they have gunshot sound, at least the camera is a screen monitor, have some kind of like a red dot, blinking dot, so people know there's something going on in that area.
Yeah, that's something they may be able to add in, Councilman. It's certainly something we can bring up with the vendor.
He's asking if it's in there now.
No.
But can we put it in that function, so,
Right.
you know, we're watching, but even the gunshots going on, we just, instead to do that, if it's a camera detect the noise of a gunshot, at least a monitor blink the light, alter something,
Right.
so we have a monitor that, watch the monitor, that knows what's something going on.
That's something we can bring up certainly with the vendor.
Yes.
Councilperson Osborne and then Robinson.
And so this is my last caucus meeting, and I just would like, who said thank God?
I did.
Ah, that's ugly, real ugly. I just would like to thank you, Greg, for how you have come to us at every single caucus meeting with an explanation, a memo, really outlining what you've done. I think you've set the bar for, absolutely, top of the line. You've set the bar for professionalism within the city, and I want to kind of publicly say thank you. I really appreciate it.
Not only that, he's a well-dressed man.
And he's very, very well dressed.
And he has gray hair.
Okay, if you have both
Councilman Robinson. Councilman Robinson.
Director, I'm gonna hold my thank yous. I'm gonna be here a little while longer. But no, since we're speaking about camera systems, the Bethune Center was burglarized twice, and we were promised to get more camera systems inside of the Bethune Center, and they're still not working. Is that something that you can take care of, or maybe I ask the other handsome gentleman behind you?
No. That's right here. Yes. Well, I guess when we go up, I'll talk about that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Director.
Thank
Okay,
you,
we have other
Councilman.
items from the director. We have 10Z1.
Z1.
This matter is for the Department of Public Safety.
Yeah, this is to buy traffic guard uniforms for the Department of Public Safety, Division of Police.
Pretty self-explanatory. It's a contract with Turnouts Fire and Safety for the purchase of uniforms for our traffic guards.
I don't have anything about the questions about the uniforms, but I would like to know if we can get some type of rules on exactly how far in each direction that we need traffic guards for, like, schools. Because on Summit Avenue right now, we have a real big issue. Right where Astor Place is, we have no crossing guard there, but we have kids walking to school there. And we also have a daycare center that's standing right there that I think houses 2 daycare centers. And it's I guess about a block and a half away from PS12 school. I was wondering if that would be a place where we would put a crossing guard.
I'll make note of that, Councilman, and bring it up with Director Calla tomorrow.
Summit and Astor Place. It's a very busy intersection, especially in the morning since the Skyway is still closed. It's very busy right there. Thank you.
We hope to continue to serve the next 4 more.
Okay.
So the city of Jersey, because I get nervous, the city gonna put a lot of new director. I hope you are not the one of them. But we can say it openly, you do a great job. Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay, we still have one more item. Mr. Director, 10Z3.
That's a memorandum of understanding to accept specialized fire equipment from the County of Hudson.
This is related to, this actually is an item that's been around for a good number of years. It was funded through the Urban Area Security Initiative, I want to say probably about 4 or 5 years ago. What it is there's 3 different types of tread that goes on the fire hydrants. And it appears that, and this is speaking from a cop telling you about fire stuff now, so it appears that when we do mutual aid in other cities, some adapt what they call a New York type thread, which is a little different from the normal connection for a hose. What this is funding what they call scorch connectors, and what that does, it allows for instance, if we're doing mutual aid in Bayonne, which does have a different tread from what our fire hydrants are, to adapt our fire hose to, hook into their hydrants.
Why they cannot make like a skateboard on the standard size?
Councilman, when I first got involved in this, that's the first question I had. I didn't realize that they had different types of fire hydrants. There's New York has one type of situation, And I believe up in North Hudson, there's also some other issues up there, but there are 3. And each one of our fire rigs that does the mutual aid will have these on board as equipment. So if they go to a fire scene at another location, other jurisdiction.
Our fire truck response out of town, we gotta make sure we carry that adapter, correct?
And vice versa. This is covering all of the fire departments that's operational in Hudson County.
My next question, what's the reason they use a different size of the?
I don't know. Yeah, that's a new one on me.
It doesn't.
It's made by different manufacturers, I was just told.
I mean,
City
they make
contracts.
different manufacturer, but size can be same.
Yeah. There's been times where our folks have gone to render mutual aid and vice versa. If Bayonne comes in on a mutual aid here, they have difficulty hooking up to our hydrants because of lack of having these adapters.
And we other person go out, help somebody, but we other people have to carry the adapter.
Yeah.
What a stupid we are. Really?
Mutual aid.
It's
It's a lot cheaper to have an adapter than change 50
Okay.
fire hydrants.
And that's the truth.
Any other questions for Director
It is
Pierce?
much cheaper. That's true.
None? Thank you, Director. If we don't see you, happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.
We have Tanya has one item, it's a second reading item. And so if we have questions about it, it's 4-0. 4-0.
Oh my God.
Journal Square, 2016, This is regarding the Central Avenue and Homestead Place extension. We also have the developer and the attorney here with us. So if there's any questions tonight about this second reading, we have a lot of second readings on this agenda. So if we can get them answered and resolved tonight rather than having a drawn-out council meeting.
So now, our concern is that, last first reading introduced that ordinance, and actually Councilman Richie Bojano, he's the head of district, General Square 2060, and me and Council Richie Bojano say no to introduce, because there are serious reason in there. I like to have all the council at large pay attention for that matter. We're not against the project itself. Project is a great project, so we like to support the project, but we had to support the project without any improved plan for mass transportation and also parking. You know, because of bonus package allow them to 12th Street to 25th Street, so density gonna be double able to do that. Without those kind of things, mass transportation and the parking, end of day, we, Jersey Heights people get supporting because of 119% started from the Bayonne General Square when they come to Central Avenue. First thing is overcrowded at mass transportation, and the second is that the bus not stop the bus, they're just passing by because of overcrowded bus. So without any plan for improved mass transportation General Square, we should not allow that any bonus package increase for 12th Street to 20 up to 25th Street. You know, and that's number one. Number two, I mean, last campaign time, every council at large heard that people complain the Heights, how bad mass transportation system provides service in Heights area. So so I hope this council at large join with me as a second reading, should be come up, knock it down this one till they come up plan.
This is in where, Ward C?
So Ward C, 26.
Councilman Bojano, what do you think?
Traffic and everything else. I spoke to the businessman in Jersey Square. And if I'm correct, Tanya, there's nothing, it still has to come before a council about concerning height and everything else. And the businessmen in Journal Square want to sit down with the Board of Authority and others and start working out the transportation problems that we have in Journal Square.
Since the last meeting that I was here, I did exactly what you asked me to, and I had a meeting with the PATH with Winnie Cheng, and we got a very clear answer from them that there's two things that we are moving forward. We're meeting with them tomorrow, along with the mayor's office, to talk about funding a study through developers, basically from the developers, that would how to increase the capacity, the vertical capacity for the PATH station, specifically at Journal Square. I've also met with our transit planner, Barca, and she's been working with New Jersey Transit, and they've already done a study for, I guess, the 119, the southern corridor, and it ended at Journal Square. And so the conversation that we had with Ms. Baker this morning was that we will continue to do the study from Journal Square north, pretty much all the way up to the north. It is I have the study here, and then the other thing that I dealt with was the pedestrian and bikes, and so Ms. Patel has been dealing with Bergen Ave kind of safe streets, zero tolerance safety issue, and tomorrow they've got pretty much like a 12-hour walkthrough on how to improve Bergen Avenue. So we are moving forward on trying to make the bus more efficient and coming up with plans, which is going to take a while, honestly, on how to actually improve vertical improvement for Journal Square. In fact, some of the things that we're looking at are adding another, basically, head house, which is just where another entrance on the other side of Kennedy Boulevard. Unfortunately, the path, very much like ourselves, doesn't have any control, myself, doesn't have any control of what things get funded or not funded, and so their staff really wants the study done on how Journal Square path can be improved so they can specifically ask for things.
Let me ask you this one. Gondola? Yeah.
So no.
I just want clarity. So Rich, are you saying you support this or you don't?
I spoke to the businessman today. I understand what Mike's saying. And even if we pass this, it doesn't mean that we have to approve things in the future. It still has to come before the council. So I would say.
I mean,
No.
what's your opinion? It's your word.
On the project, I think the project is beautiful. I think it's a
See, that's what I'm saying.
fantastic
Project is beautiful. We have no objection with the project itself.
Voted against it.
But reason is that we have not happy with the project itself because the project without any plan for mass transportation improvement, and the second is parking. And then let me take this one. Some major development in this area, in Jersey area, they provide a shuttle bus from the, what are they called, the Beacon condominium to so-and-so. If they want to increase their bonus package for 12th Street to 25 streets high, increase the density population, then they should come plan for their own plan, provide a shuttle bus from the Journal Square to somewhere 42nd Street. Today's people of Jersey City Heights, whoever coming to New York City in the Midtown, they wait for bus at 7 o'clock in the morning. Bus show up because it's bus so crowded. They not stop. They just passing by. You think about it. In the morning, you have to go job. 9 o'clock in the morning, you miss the two buses because bus so crowd passing by. Then it's a serious problem. But that's the way things happen. Jersey City High today. Because why? After they opened the 50th Street high-rise building, that's what is the problem we face now. Before, major complaint in transportation, people complain that bus not show up on time. That's the number one complaint. Today, bus show up is on time, but problem, bus is overcrowded, they not stop, buses start, they're just passing by. So now we know the problem what we have. So I like the developer come up plan. Yes, councilman, we know the problem what we have. We're gonna provide the shuttle bus from the Journal Square to their so-and-so to 42nd Street, whatever they go. See, come up plan. If it cause a problem, the other one, then they should come with a plan together. Solution.
Councilman Williams, let me ask you. This is your ward. I just want to be clear about where, folks.
to the businessman. Michael, wait. This isn't going to be built for a few years down the road. And the Port of Authority, and it's being worked on, like you said, the New Jersey Transit's being worked on, and these problems are gonna be solved. By the time this project is done, built and everything, these problems should all be solved.
Okay.
And Tanya, what you said about the Port of Authority before, as far as I'm concerned, the Port of Authority is spending billions, billions in New York, and can give a damn about here. That's the governor, our senators have to start getting proactive and tell the Port of Authority to start doing something.
That's why we're engaging in collaborative.
We gotta give one more?
So, I'm not trying to bust your chops, folks. I just want to get clarity. Do you support the amendments that are being proposed here? Okay.
Do you support it?
So now,
I got it.
Expansion is coming regardless. This amendment actually provides the county the relief for not having to pay for it and the improvements. The developer will be building it to our engineering standards instead.
So I just want to clarify for the record and so forth. So the amendment, the height bonuses are triggered if they're prepared, if they have a redevelopment agreement, and they're prepared to, through that agreement, accept, assuming the cost of the build out of the infrastructure, the street and the pedestrian walkway. So just to your point as to what the businesses said in the area, in terms of, I'm glad that they support it. I think it is a good amendment, generally speaking. I did talk about the valuations with them around that, with the financial valuation. But just to clarify for the record, it would not likely come back to the council. It'd go before the JCRA commission, right? So just eyes wide open on that conversation. So it's not going to come back to the council for approvals. Is that accurate?
If you do it through a redevelopment agreement,
Yeah.
it will go
Goes
to the
to the commission.
JCRA. Yeah.
But if they come for an abatement or anything like that, then it would come back to the council at that point.
Come back to the council.
No, the height is written and specified in the plan.
In here?
already. Yep.
So you have to come back.
No, not to the city council. It would be a planning board application.
Because the people in the community are now starting to go against all these developments in height. So one way or the other, there's gonna be problems down the road. Now, I know, we can work with the developer, we can work with, other people in Journal Square.
Okay.
See,
Okay.
the council, this is what's a beauty. Rich and myself, we work together, but when you have an issue, you have a different opinion, we have to bring up that issue. So now, once we pass amendment tomorrow, you don't have to come back to amendment to prove anything. Project will be done by bill-based amendment, correct? Only they come to city council when they're looking for tax abatement. So in other words, if we pass to tomorrow, this Wednesday, it's over.
Now it will go to the commission again.
Then they'll go to JCRA. But JCRA is actually,
Our role would be done.
yes, independent agency, how much we can influence as city council members. So very limited, you know what I'm saying? So now, do me a favor, Tanya, you're the one of the most important role play in Jersey City planning and development, you know what I'm saying? So before you come in city council, I'm asking two. Mass transportation parking number are the two major issues in Jersey City today. So parking is not only limited to downtown, height, citywide issue now, okay? And the transportation issue, yes, it's not only height, citywide issue, because we're not like a New York City. New York City well-developed mass transportation service available
People
compared
wait
with
five
Jersey
trains
City.
on the
Compared with Jersey
people wait
City.
5 trains in Brooklyn. So
Yeah.
just to bust that
Yeah.
myth, it's just as bad in Brooklyn, if not worse, than it is in Jersey
see,
City.
but in Jersey City, we got a lot of transportation desert. Not only food desert, we have transportation desert there. So you have to play some role. This kind of project, they should provide shuttle bus, some location A to B. If they want to use it, their bonus heights, you gotta come up something. You gotta pay attention a little bit.
I heard what you said at the last caucus, and I immediately acted on, like I said, pretty much what I consider everything that you can: the bus, the ped, the bike, and the path. But specifically to the developer, I don't know if Mr. Harrington can speak a little bit more to the idea of how the developer can handle the additional.
So if they do not have any solution for 4 or 5 years later, perhaps construction started 4 or 5 years based on Council Rich Bujano, we're not going to hear, maybe he's not going to be here, but 4 or 5 years later, if the solution is not on the table, then what you guys going to do?
It's a good comments, good questions. And to clarify, yeah, this would just be the starting point. If these amendments were passed, it would have to, any developer taking advantage of these bonus provisions has to have a redevelopers agreement with the Jersey City Redevelopment Agency. Okay. So as part of that was, 2 council people sit on the JCRA, so they would be overseeing it. Planning board, there's 1 council person.
Council members.
Right.
Self and Councilman Rivera.
Okay.
Councilman Rivera.
Yeah.
And
Yes, truly.
And so, and part of the process is, Councilman Bogiano, oversees, and is aware of all the development in the General Square area. So we would be working closely with the city and with Councilman Bogiano and the neighborhoods, because nothing, in my impression, nothing is going to move forward without the overall blessing of the city and the JCRA. And to your questions about shuttle buses and things like that, those are issues that can be incorporated into a redevelopers agreement with the developer. The agency has that authority to negotiate and contractually obligate us to do that, or any developer, but that's not something you would see in the zoning. But the point being, we can't get to the planning board without an agreement with the JCRA. And those issues can be flushed out in an agreement with the JCRA, among others. I mean, this is, again, my client and my thought on this is gonna be a public-private partnership. It has to work for the city, has to work for the agency, has to work for the developer to create these improvements. We think it's a great opportunity to make it happen, but it's not gonna happen unless the city and the JCRA are happy with that.
Actually, the General Square is a hub of transportation. So people live in General Square use a mass transportation. They are the one get sick because the most of transportation started from that point, except pass train. But who get the negative impact in the height, the surrounding area? So when you talk those things issue, the mass development in the General Square, I like the Jersey Heights, Worthy County should be involved there, because we are the one get negative impact by possibly impacted by development in General Square. So I like you guys invited me, so I'd like to join in, okay?
Absolutely, there's a
All
lot
right.
of moving parts here. Councilman Gadsden.
I've got a quick question concerning the Hoboken and Newark portion of it. The last conversation we had, that was like the agreement between the county and the developer for a certain portion of that land, right?
The developer would build the whole.
The whole street would be built out by the developer.
So the developer at this current stage owns this whole parcel of land between Hoboken and North, like there's no other businesses?
Not yet. They own, JCRA.
They own these two.
Right.
These two parcels, and in the event they took advantage of the bonus
Provisions, they would be required to build the entire street, all of Central Avenue. Nothing less. The entire thing. They would not be putting half a street.
Any other questions, Council?
Council President, thank you for the opportunity. I'm not happy with that, without any action plan for the transportation provide those area, but good luck.
Yeah, that's something we could address in the redevelopment.
Okay, please.
I have a question. I recall
in our individual meeting, one-to-one meeting, the Homestead Place, you'll have the responsibility for the maintenance of if you should take on this bonus provision, you would have the responsibility of the maintenance in perpetuity.
Absolutely.
Does that apply for the Central Avenue as well? That's a road, right?
That's right. We would build it and
Dedicate it back.
City. So they would only take it provided it conforms with all the engineering standards.
So, you sent me the financial valuations on that?
Yes.
You did, right? And did you, frankly, I haven't looked at them yet, but for the Homestead Place and that provision, you valued the maintenance in perpetuity, that cost, or?
I believe that's in there.
Those would be when, as we discussed, those costs would be reviewed prior to entering into an agreement to update them if the costs, are more, and all those things would be flushed out and detailed in any redevelopers agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Barca, you're up, 10H.
Barca has two resolutions. The first one is 10H. The second one is 10J.
H-A.
10H is a resolution authorizing the city to submit an application to Department of Transportation's Local Planning Assistance Program for safety and design improvements to Christopher Columbus Drive.
This is a program that New Jersey Department of Transportation provides with no financial requirement on behalf of the municipality to give planning and design assistance for things like traffic calming projects, road diets, bicycle master plans, pedestrian master plans. The city has never in the past applied for this program, so we're taking advantage of it to make much needed improvements on Columbus Drive in light of recent fatalities and injuries.
Is the council's resolution a requirement of the application, or?
Yes,
it is. That's why we do it.
Sure.
See, crash reports, data report, 2009 to 2013.
Yes.
Okay, now, if we see that the Christopher Columbus Drive, and based on crash data report between 2009 to 2013, that's a rank 21. But if we see that other area, where is Hudson Boulevard? I'm not sure where is Hudson Boulevard. Kennedy Boulevard, we call Hudson Boulevard. And Kennedy Boulevard is a rank 1, and especially Summit Avenue, which is my district, is a rank 5. So now, if I'm you to study, talk about the safety program for the pedestrian safety program, I'm going to go by select by rank, number 1, number 2, number 3. But then you all skip the number 1 to number 20, and you select the 21 Christopher Columbus Drive. Would you explain why you skipped the 1 to 20 and select the 21?
Yes. So this list that you have in front of you, which is Appendix B in the package, this list that lists the corridors is something that's produced by NJTPA to rank the streets with the most problems, so highest ranked. Most of these are streets that we already have projects either ongoing or that we have applications in for funding, and those are actually for infrastructure improvements. So Kennedy Boulevard, Communipaw, Summit Avenue, SIP Avenue, Martin Luther King Drive, either already have projects that we have funding secured for to make improvements. Are you sure? Yes.
You're right, but I'm not wrong. Yeah, but see, look at this
I don't
one.
have that with me right now, but
No, listen to me. We gotta make it clear that Summit Avenue, which is I got complaint every single day, you know, and that was rank 5, you know, separate Georgia City wise.
Do you have funding for Summit?
Summit Avenue, what kind of funding? I mean, program and funding. Yeah, I never heard that. It was Central Avenue.
Let her explain.
Yeah, explain to me.
sure. So we either have funding in place to make infrastructure improvements through local safety programs that the engineering department manages, or we have planning and design studies going on that address these streets. So the pedestrian study that we have going on right now, which addresses one corridor in each ward.
As a councilperson, not only myself, every councilperson has the right to know. Do me a favor, if some works involved that you can look at all the street based on which district it will be ward actually. Can't you give a ward D, Summit Avenue, Central Avenue, Palisade Avenue, Terrace and Plank Road, which is very dangerous, and Samples and Stegman Street. Show me and explain to me and give me some report from your office. Yes, give us a report that what kind of programs in place and what is a plan you're going to do for that.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure.
Angela, I think it's a good question, and so just the first 20, just an explanation for each corridor, what program or what study.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be like, we're not looking for a book report here. Just.
We put your capital improvement money for the traffic light in the budget 2017, almost $400,000. I think $500,000, that's what we put in. But just to print it your corner for traffic light, the cost of taxpayer $350,000. So even though we allocated $500,000 for traffic light, it's just enough for one. You know what I'm saying? But since that, I didn't see any dollars come to the city of Jersey except ADA compliance programs. So if we have other programs that you're going to in place, show me. I'd like to know, okay?
Okay, and I should add that applying for design assistance, so this is just going to be a consultant that Department of Transportation has on call that will provide their expertise to guide us in terms of what would be the best design for Columbus Drive. So this doesn't preclude us from applying for more of these in other parts of the city. So if there's a need, and I know there is in the Heights, we can apply for the same program on any other street that we want.
We know that Crystal Columbus is a major street. If you put just something, it's a good piece to show up to citywide and statewide. But some may have been implement to public safety as a separate program because it's not a major, but a lot of accident. Nobody gonna recognize that project. Yeah. So give me some your side, all right?
I can speak to Summit, Palisade, and Central. Those have been the focus areas of the pedestrian study we have going on right now, which you all may know about, called JC Walks. We chose Central Avenue as the focus, and the idea was to choose streets that have similar typologies. So if we study one, we can apply the same kind of treatment to the parallel streets. So that's how we're going to be dealing with Central. And you participated in the parklet with us, and you did some of the walk with us, and that's how we're going to be dealing with those streets.
You know, so yeah, okay, give me some, okay?
Okay. We've one more item, 10J, right? It's a resolution of the city authorizing the city to enter into a cost reimbursement agreement with the NJTPA and the NJIT, which will enable Jersey City to receive funding for future task orders.
North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority is the regional planning authority for this part of the state, and Jersey City is one of its subregions. As a subregion, every year we get a grant from this planning authority to conduct any and all transportation activities. The grant money goes towards staff time, but also gives us money for supplies. This year we have put in for, and this contract authorizes intern support so that there will be additional hands on deck for transportation activities.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. You too.
Holidays.
Happy holidays.
No, don't worry about it. We're not gonna call you.
So we've got Brian Butler here. He's got 3 items. We'll start with 10Z4, and he has 10Z6 and 10Z7.
10Z4 is rejecting the sole bid for a contract for the Loews Theater standpipe and emergency lighting.
It's pretty straightforward, Council. The architect's estimate was significantly less than the one bid, so we're going to go back, value engineer, and put it back out. We have grant funding for this. There's no capital funding authorized.
Any questions? So $751,000 we have to put in that sand the pipe, right?
We're not doing it. It's too much money.
Yeah, we're not doing it.
What, $751,000? It's a lot of money?
If you wanna
Was it
make
that
up the
size of it?
difference, if you wanna make up the difference.
No, I mean the size of the building.
We only have $400,000 for this project.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you have to waste it on something that shouldn't
No, it's not
cost
the waste,
$700,000.
No, it's not the waste.
We only received one bid. We should be competitive. We should get more than one. We should at least get 2, 3, or more.
Yeah.
All right, 10Z6.
Resolution authorizing the award of contract to WB Mason for the purchase and delivery and installation of office furniture for the Department of Administration, Division of Architecture, through the Educational Services Commission of New Jersey, formerly Middlesex Regional Educational Services Commission.
So $600,000 office furniture. When I spoke to Stephen Miller, this is just a partial. So how much total?
This is only, to the best of my knowledge, this is only partial. It's only partial.
If it's partial, it's 90%. It's not.
Yeah, it's
for the City Hall.
for the new annex.
No, they cannot use that what they're using right now because they try to maximize the space in the city hall annex building.
Right.
Because of that, what we build is actually smaller than what we originally planned, correct?
No, that's not correct. The
Well-
reason it's a brand-new building, it should have brand-new furniture.
No, don't say that.
Why not?
Brand new building require brand new furniture, it doesn't work that way.
I wish Stacy was here to talk about the furniture she has in her, so.
Try to maximize the space, then we understand. But if somebody say that because we got brand new building, that's why we require brand new furniture, that is unacceptable. You
I
understand?
agree with
It's
you.
a big
I
difference.
misspoke. That's not what I meant. Yeah.
It is to optimize space as well as all the interactions with the IT equipment and electric. Sometimes used furniture has been shown to cause problems because things don't line up, people are tripping over extension cords, things like that.
So now, what we gonna do all the office furniture?
Yeah, let's have what happens to the old furniture.
We're gonna give them people of Jersey City first come first to pick up the furniture. What we gonna do that there?
I think a lot of, I'm not sure, but I think a lot of that older furniture is, was donated. Isn't that the Matt Kelly furniture?
It depends on where it is.
Yeah, there's a,
I'll have to get back to you. I mean, we certainly couldn't do what you just said, which is to give it away. Because you couldn't, because there are laws that govern how public property can be disposed of. So I'll have to get back to you.
So there are a couple of good nonprofits out there that could probably repurpose it.
That we probably could do. We could negotiate with a nonprofit.
Use that your old furniture a little more wisely, you know what I'm saying, to benefit the city of Jersey and the people of Jersey City, not just a dumping, no? Right? Okay. So this is a $600,000, 90% off.
Yeah, 90%.
Okay.
The next one is E7. It's a resolution authorizing the award of the contract to Zenith Construction Services for the Hamilton Park gazebo repairs project number 2016044 for the Department of Administration Division of Architecture.
Wasn't that just built, basically, and rebuilt?
No, it was hit by a truck.
no, it's Hamilton Park gazebo. Well, no, we had to reject the bids a month and a half ago because of paperwork problems with the bidders and the pricing was too high. So.
Going on there?
It's all
breakdown?
structural repairs to the gazebo that were damaged in the accident.
Did he get something in writing on that?
We're only doing this because of the accident, correct?
Correct.
Because I know we have a gazebo that the roof is falling down in Arlington Park. I don't know if it has concerns, safety concerns.
I'm actually budgeting for other gazebo improvements in my budget request because there's a lot of them that are suffering, they need repairs. Yes, it's one of them, yep.
We get reimbursed from the insurance company, right? We're gonna get the reimbursement from the insurance company. This is actually auto insurance accident, right?
Correct.
So it's not cost the taxpayer? Okay, great. All right.
Councilor Robinson, there's a memo detailing the, what the work consists of. I say detailing, it outlines 8 things that's working, it's not really detailed, but. Okay. Any other questions for?
Perennial question.
The track.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
Where is it at now?
You gotta talk to our engineer, Mr. Kuna.
You know, actually, gotta ask Joe Kuno, because Joe Kuno promised us this council can be done November this year, not next year, but still we didn't see anything yet. That's number one. Number two, how about the mosquito park that, that hired consulting company, right?
Master plan
Yeah.
is going. We've awarded the contract. I'm trying to set up some dates, and once we do, all the surrounding communities and parks groups will know.
Number three is Riverview Park. You plan to do groundbreaking next year, April, May, right?
That's what we're aiming for, yes.
2018.
Come on.
Brian, we love you.
Stand like you're watching.
We want you, Brian, we want you to continue to serve Georgia City next 4 years.
Oh, God.
Okay,
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. We have Kate Lawrence here. She's here for 3 second reading ordinances. Again, if you have questions, ask them now. It's 4I, 4J, and 4M. And I guess I'll start with M. So we're looking at I. And I'm asking this on behalf of Ms. Bailey, who is here tonight and spoke to the council and had asked about an amendment that the section, page 4, I guess it's 321-6, item number 2, says the removal of the city tree is required. And you're all getting handouts right now, so it's on the second page of that, the third page, but it's the second page, but number 3 in this document.
Fortunate time for our lawyers.
And yes, where's Joanne? She left?
Joanne she just stepped in the hallway.
And the question would be for the law department whether this would be a material substantive change, and to you whether this is a change worth amending, or your opinion on the change. I don't know. We have to ask the law department as to whether a material change. So if, on behalf of Ms. Bailey, having this conversation, but not bringing her to the,
Talking about the tree ordinance, Joanne?
and just being consistent with our practices in the past, not bringing in for public speaking or open public speaking, but proposed change here to the ordinance that would alter what's being proposed, this language. The removal of the city tree is required for the development of the property of the improvement of the sidewalk, establishing some criteria for the removal of city trees, and then amending it to include this language, and whether that would be considered material.
All 3 of those items?
Just this one item, correct?
I'm sorry, what is the specified change?
You can use my copy.
Oh, no, I have it.
321-6, item number 2, and altering that one particular section with the highlighted areas for the inclusion there with regard to that. And the idea being that it would protect, it would provide for the 84 trees that Ms. Bailey brought to our attention at the last council meeting.
That looks material to me.
Material, right?
But, yeah, it does.
So I spoke with Ms. Bailey, and I have another option.
Ms. Bailey is the lady that spoke.
Trees
She
of
was the
the-
keynote speaker at our last meeting.
Yes, I remember.
Side Hill, 84 trees.
Yes,
I
remember.
So I think that the language, I have a question for the law department as well as a suggestion. So my question is, I think Ms. Bailey is concerned that if a developer makes the case that a city tree poses a danger and that they want to remove the tree so that they can repair the sidewalk, does the city then have to give them the permit? My understanding of the way it is written is that they may be given a permit if they meet these criteria, but they don't have to be given a permit. But I don't know what the law department's interpretation. Without the amendment, the way it stands.
The way it reads, okay. I don't like doing things off the cuff, so I mean, sometimes I do. Sometimes I can, but this really, I'm going to give you.
If something says it may be permitted, you may get a permit if you can meet these criteria. Does that mean you have to get a permit if you make a case that you make the criteria?
Well, there are cases are legion as to whether may is permissive or mandatory, and, it's not that easy of a call. So let me take a look at it, but I do think, just first blush, that this would be a material change that would require a reintroduction, so.
So.
But I can get back to you.
Why don't we have the law department review
current language,
Well,
proposed change, give us your opinion at the council meeting as to whether it would be a material change and whether the change is necessary in order to
Right, so I can also
have the
offer
spirit
a
of the law.
different suggestion, which would, that may or may not be a material change, which would just be that an adjoining property owner may be granted a permit for the removal of tree abutting his or her property. Sorry, I'm just rereading the same sentence until the point where it says, if it can be proven to the city forester that one of the following conditions is met. Just a slight tweak of the language.
Well, the brevity of the change is not what's determinative as to whether or not it's a material change, so I don't think that that would really be such a difference. But let's look at
Why
it.
don't you look at that language, the suggested language, why don't you submit that to her as well?
Yes.
And then your suggested language, if we can get, you've got Ms. Bailey's copy there with information.
Both of the trees are on both of the dedicated portions of Society Hill.
Hill, right. Oh, it's the
They're
dedicated.
wholly within the dedicated portions of Society Hill.
Okay, but so they're in the dedicated portion so that the city is responsible, or do they still have a maintenance obligation for those trees? What does the easement say, do you know?
Well, it's not, we didn't want to open this up to like public
Okay,
discussion.
I mean, it does,
yeah.
but those, see,
I have
it's
Ms.
not as
Bailey's contact
simple.
information. Maybe we can schedule a meeting and just kind of hash this out and like really work it out, yeah?
Yeah.
I don't know what your availability is like during the day, but we could do that.
I think that, I mean, personally, I think that's better than trying to rush something through on a, and have a problem with it, but.
Don't want to stop what's already been in motion if there's an opportunity to strengthen the language at a later date with an amendment.
Rather than do
Right.
it strictly. That's a different question. That's a different question. Yeah, I mean, you can, obviously, you adopted it and you can adopt it the way it was introduced verbatim, but if you're trying to change it and you're adding this language, I think the argument will be it's material, so you better have that as a separate ordinance in January. You can always amend or rescind or,
You just indicated it can be done.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You want to refrain from it.
But, yeah, to make it, muck it up. But if you could just email me maybe your questions, so make sure I got your question correct. Okay.
So, putting that aside, there were still these items. Anyone have questions on any of these second reading items not pertaining to the?
The page, same with the page 4.
4J?
This is 4J?
Which one, 4I?
Yeah, 4I, right.
Okay.
Just a simple question that I'm gonna ask her, that, page 4, 321-6, removal of city trees. B, the owner granted a permit to remove city trees under subsection A2 shall make a payment to the city. But now, that payment, let's say, I get the permit from the city of Jersey to remove the trees. So then, I have to pay the city of Jersey City that the valuable trees, maybe whatever that Park and Forest decide, like a $200, $400. If I pay that, then money go to general fund, or then money go to replace the trees somewhere in my property. I'm sidewalk. How they work there?
Well,
Yeah, that's what it said in the next
it
one.
would be the general fund. I would prefer that it was a separate fund for trees, but at this time it was not considered by the law department to be the best approach.
In C, Mike, it says, they shower, if they,
Yeah.
The general fund.
To go general fund.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Then, let's say, this is just put it this way. The trees is the front of the property, so, but I have to knock it down my house, build a brand new. Because of their work, I have to remove the trees. But in order to remove tree, I get the permit, but I have to pay the city of Jersey City. Let's say $600. I don't know what the price is there, $600. But after I finish construction, I have to replace trees in my code. That time, I have to pay separate money for the trees, or what I pay for is a cover the city have to replace tree.
No, in the discussion with the Parks and Forestry, it says that if the municipal forester, section C, C, 321-6C. If the municipal forester determines that a tree requires removal, the Division of Parks and Forestry shall replace it with a tree from the list of recommended trees.
At the time, the property owner have to pay for trees, or that what we pay for, the B is cover the replace the tree?
Yes, it would because the reason why it was written this way, and rather than having the property owner actually replace the tree, is because the Division of Parks and Forestry wanted to have control over planting the tree correctly as part of their forestry, as part of their tree planting. So basically, you'd be paying into the fund, and then the Parks and Forestry would replace the tree, but it might not be able to go back in the exact same location because there might be a reason, right?
Okay, so Pat, HW, don't ask for $200 extra for trees in front of my house. Just clear. All right, good.
Councilor Bojana, your question?
Yeah, Kate.
Yes.
Last meeting we had, we brought up the issue about, you're saying the trees in front of the person's house belong to the city.
They do.
And I asked the question, well, your tree raises my sidewalk. If your tree comes down on somebody, then you're responsible, not me. And you said no.
I did not say that. I don't. If I did say no, I misunderstood your question. As far as the responsibility of that, I would really defer to the law department. Liability.
No, I mean, all right.
I mean, that will turn on a lot of facts. Who planted the tree? Was there any, or did the city plant it? Did the property owner plant it?
You're saying to me that a tree outside, let's say my house, you can't cut down. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a city's tree. I don't know who planted the tree 100 years ago.
It's in the public right of way.
Yes, a sidewalk.
All right, then the city's responsible for my sidewalk.
I know for commercial, I don't believe for commercial owners, but for residential, that's possible. I don't know. I would have to know all the facts, and I want to make sure I tell you, accurately recite the law to you. So I would rather be given the chance to research it, because it's not just that simple of an answer.
I think this whole thing should be put aside until we get these answers. Because I know several people right now whose sidewalks are being lifted up. Sidewalk costs now $3,000, $4,000, $5,000.
It's very expensive.
If it's a city tree, let the city replace the sidewalk. Not you, Pat.
That will fall under Parks and Forestry. I mean, I can have Sammy here Wednesday to address this issue if you want.
See, now,
Who's the director
Joanne,
for
if I'm
Parks and
wrong,
Forestry?
correct me. Why do we understand that trees in the public street sidewalk that belong to city of Jersey City, but if they tree roots lifted the sidewalk, then what they say that's the way years ago they do that to us, that city not going to replace the sidewalk, but city willing to voluntarily, not voluntarily, city will be ground the roots to give us to condition to we can replace the sidewalk. That's what they say.
Okay, let me find out if that's accurate. We have been down this road, it's not the area that I practice upstairs. We have a separate division on that, so, who deals with a lot of these kinds of issues. So we have a memo, I'm sure there is difference between commercial owners and residential.
No, residential, but why do we avoid issues there? If this is the Alton Avenue, sidewalk is very narrow, like a 5 foot wide, but city roots grew up, take up probably 4 feet of sidewalk. So people only can pass a 1 foot sidewalk. It's really dangerous, and all the sidewalk rifted because of trees, probably 100 years old tree. So that property owner going crazy really because of that risk she has. Anybody get fall, what happened? They sue property owner, and they also probably sue that the city of Jersey City. So we should be, trees protection is very good, but also the other hand, we have to protect pedestrian, and not only that, property owner. So if a tree roots that take space more than so much, then they should be given opportunity to remove the tree, plant new trees. Those kind of things we should be putting this ordinance. So make that protect the pedestrian, property owner, city of Jersey City. But those things is missing actually this one.
And you're talking about repairing the sidewalk?
Yes.
Sidewalk, property owner, so that's, I think you really have to sit down administrator and corporation counsel to figure out, number one, what the legal obligations of the parties are presently. Number two, how they can be changed. And number three, what the cost of that decision would be to the municipality.
It's actually city-wise cost is nothing. City-wise cost is nothing. The reason is that, I think this is because, as you said, I thank you for your effort to plant the trees, the right size of right kind of trees. Planting sidewalk is very, very important. But years ago, they plant any tree they want. So about time to this city, moving forward, we should correct the problem, what it caused by years ago. We need to do that. If the tree is not belong to the sidewalk today, then we should have a right remove, plant new trees. Other than that, we never able to correct the problem what we have. Is that right? Yes.
Okay.
Don't say no.
Joanne?
You answer your own question.
So, if we could get to their point, the interpretation on residential properties, right of way, if we could get something in writing, because it's as was described there earlier by the councilman, that's been the basis for Parks and Forestry for some time now, that it's the residents' responsibility to assume the cost of the sidewalk repair, and that Parks and Forestry will shave down the roots and all that stuff. And so that's been the basis for a long time. If it's not the case, then we're going to have a big sweeping change in the city, and you're going to have a lot of folks who are going to say, fix my sidewalk tomorrow.
The other issue is if somebody is injured on the public right-of-way, that is different from who has to repair a broken sidewalk. It gets, in fact, I see some of my lawyer friends, I can see them nodding their head. It's more complicated than you can imagine. So the straight answer is, just don't know them off the top of my head.
So why don't we do this way? We put this one, we amend later on, add to those things to protect the pedestrian, property owner, city of Jersey City. Just one extra paragraph, you know what I'm saying?
You want to amend that?
Yes, we have to.
Any amendment at this point would revert it to a first reading, and so we'd be looking at the next year at this point, so.
I would prefer it.
I think that as it stands, it's a good ordinance. I do think.
They want to amend it. They want to amend it.
Adopt it because your
Yeah, adopt
efforts.
this.
Adopt this version and
And
see
then
if
they want to.
Next year, we're gonna
Amend
amend.
it in 2018?
So we gotta sit down with you,
Okay, that's
okay?
okay.
We gotta protect the three party, city, pedestrian, property owner. Fair enough?
Okay, that sounds
Good.
good.
And you make sure Parks and Forestry is involved.
Yes. So can you set a meeting? I'd like to.
Yes, I will talk with Margaret.
So that covers 4I, 4J, and 4M. Folks, that's all of them, right? We can let Kate go?
Did anyone have any questions on Grand Jersey? I'm with planning, and I will be the director of the Office of Sustainability starting in January.
So Grand Jersey, 4M. The Grand Jersey redevelopment plan.
Introduced unanimously.
Okay. Oh, one last thought.
To leave you on, planner Tanya Marione is doing work in the Heights, as you know, and she did a survey this weekend. She sent it out to the two major community groups within the Heights, as well as all the Facebook groups. Yep, and she asked a number of questions, and just, I think this is appropriate for the discussion that we just had. The question was, answer yes if you agree with the statement, or no if you disagree with the statement. The statement is, there are not enough street trees on my block. And of the 188 people who replied to that question, 71.8% said there were not enough trees on their block. Okay.
For all the wise.
Yes. They need to be in here.
Okay.
We love trees.
If a tree falls in Jersey City, nobody's around.
Does the ex-councilman hear it?
Isn't making noise.
Next victim, Council President?
Next one is Director Stamato.
That's what I say.
That's what Barbara said.
Good evening, everyone. It's always next year. first item on the agenda, I have 10Y.
That's a resolution authorizing the purchasing agent to sell various impounded vehicles at public auction.
We have a total of 166 motor vehicles that will be auctioning off very shortly upon this resolution.
Any questions? No, I just have a comment. I think it's, I'm glad to see that a lot more volume is moving here, and it seems like the prices are coming down, which is great. And that I'd love to see the results of this auction to see if some of them actually move, and yeah, somebody actually acquires them. And then I guess should revisit the ordinance that you guys were talking about.
I was just going to address that, Council President. That ordinance is basically in final review within the next, within the next month, let's say. Will be in front of the board, in front of the council for approval. So we do have a couple discussions coming up. Everybody and anybody is welcome to that in order for the finalization. It's being reviewed right now by legal, at which point, once they get done, then the BA and myself and different members of DPW that are involved in this project, along with any council member who's interested in sitting in on that, is more than welcome also to sit on it for any type of input and final review before we come before you for the resolution.
Okay, next item.
All right.
Can we skip all the way to Z8?
Z2.
Z2?
Z2.
Sorry.
All right, I have a problem with Z2, which I just noticed. This is for the Parking Enforcement Division, and the first sentence reads 3 2018 Ford Explorers. The problem is that it's 3 F-250 heavy-duty pickup trucks, four-wheel drives with plows and salters. Go ahead. 3. Yeah, they're 3 F-250 heavy-duty. If you look in your 10Z2, if you look in the document, you'll see that that's what it's referring to. That was a spelling area, actually a mix-up on words and vehicles. But I can correct that for you for tomorrow and re-bring it in front of you. All right, by Wednesday you'll have it, if that's okay.
Any other questions on 10Z2? Nope, none. You got 10Z8, Z9, Z10, all the way to Z14.
This here again, these are contracts that are in place. We're asking to extend the amount.
Z8 is the contract with City Auto and Truck Parts. It's a change order increasing their contract for purchase and delivery of heavy-duty vehicle parts and other auto parts.
Getting a little bit of a jump on this due to the fact that we're going into the snow season, and we are running into repairs. Yes.
Because I know I read that these are for when you're saying that it's F-250s?
F-250 pickups rather than suburban, not suburban, Explorers.
Purpose says needed for winter when scooters cannot be utilized in the snow. This is for parking enforcement?
Parking enforcement. Also going to be used as a dual role on this. They're also going to be used for snow plowing and snow removal and salting for their locations and also to help with us, DPW.
So the person who drives the trucks for the salt and snow removal is going to be writing summonses as well? No.
Not really, but they can. In other words, what they'll do, they'll go out and do whatever they have to do as far as the parking is concerned. And then what'll happen once we go into a close down where the streets need to be plowed or salted, then they'll be able to be used for that, or their own facilities in order for their vehicles to get out, which will help us.
Redeploying staff that is following them, sweepers.
Correct. Or not so much sweepers, but the salting equipment and, areas that we can't get in. Because right now what we've been doing is helping them out with a lot of their facilities and a lot of the areas that they run into a problem with their vehicles.
I guess when you change that, you can change the purpose as well, because it just says primarily be used for parking enforcement. It says nothing about.
Well, they can. Once you take off the plow, They can, or even with the plow on, they can still be used for parking enforcement.
So
It's
this
a regular
is just the
pickup truck with a
F-250,
plow.
not the Salter and plow. We already own the Salters and plows.
No, we'll have to get them,
So
that's
we-
what this, yes, that's part of this.
Alright, so I mean, I guess we can add that in when you change the.
Yeah, we'll do that. I'll make it, you know what, let me go through this, and, you know, I breezed through it, and, you know what, at the point, I figured, let me address you. The council, in fact, once I saw the Explorers, it kind of like threw a wrench, and I wanted to change that, but it was too late. Questions?
All right, Z9 is the contract to,
This is to provide light-duty parts for a lot of the four-wheel drive vehicles, the lighter vehicles that we have, along with the police cars and the fire the fire equipment, smaller stuff.
I'm sorry, do we do Z8?
Yes. That has to do with supplying parts for the miscellaneous equipment. Again, larger pieces, not light-duty, heavy-duty.
Increasing the contracts by 40,000.
Correct.
For how long a period?
This will take us probably through the first of the year, maybe a little longer, yeah, past January 1st. We want to get a jump on it because we don't want to run into a situation.
Until December 31st.
Correct.
So you're increasing 40,000 for approximately 20-some days.
You got it, yes.
It's a lot of money for 20 days of work, right? I don't know.
This is open-ended, so if there's no repairs needed, that money doesn't get spent.
Okay.
And then January.
But we're spent down, is that what, are we spent down? Is that what the balance is here, or?
We're trying to cover ourselves because of right now not being able to spend anything until everything gets finalized going into the new year. So we're just covering ourselves. It's not that we're going to go out and spend $40,000, but, you know, if the need came up, we have some snowstorms and ice storms coming into play, so we're just basically getting a jump on things so we don't run into any delays, especially when it comes to ordering parts.
This is our concern. Over the past 4 years, as a councilperson, to see that the motor vehicle maintenance of City of Jersey is millions and millions of dollars. So now my concern is that, let's put it this way, city DPW dropped one of the vehicle to maintenance or repair service outsourcing, one of the shop. When they come up, they say, okay, you gotta fix this one, like probably 10 different items, have to correct the problem to maintain so-and-so. Then how DPW have to, we send to any auditors or inspector or compliance officer, make sure that those kind of item listed they're repairing, really they're necessary to repair it. Do we have those kind of systems?
Yes, we do. We've put them in place where, well, once our budget is approved, we're going to be putting in a system to give us checks and balances, more so than the way it's being done now. So every vehicle that'll go out will have a complete itemization, rather than being hand inputted, it'll be done, electronically.
But I mean, itemize is one thing, but do we have a technician or mechanic to go out, really do the repairs, all the necessary repairs we're doing or not? Something, because we see the millions and millions of dollars, really.
Well, you got two factors. To answer your question, yes, when that vehicle comes back to the shop, it is thoroughly inspected. Because before it goes on the road, we have to make sure that everything has been done. So to answer the first part of your question, yes. As far as the amount of money that you're spending, we're holding on to a lot of our vehicles way too long, and it's costing us a tremendous amount of money. We're analyzing that right now. We're looking at a capital budget. So as soon as we get done with that, you'll have an idea where we're going in the future. You have vehicles that are basically 10 years old, and they should have been, brought off the road. What we're spending just on repairs and parts, it's just ludicrous. And we're playing catch-up, basically.
If you go to like a car accident, when you go repair shop, and the guys put in items that, what they require repairing, they come up total repair cost, then labels and so on and so. City of Jersey, DPW, today we have those kind of system. So when they shop claim that we gonna have just so and so repairs required, there any way we can verify the cost in our hand, outside?
All right, what we do, to give you an idea, it's not like we're going into a regular car dealership and you bring your car in and say, well, look, I'm hearing a noise. So the next thing you know, you come back out and you have a bill for $1,000 when you thought it was a belt, let's say. What we do is we're specific on when we send that vehicle out for repairs, whether it's a truck, whether it's an automobile, whatever it is, we're very specific. So for example, it's diagnosed already, so they can't come back and say, oh, by the way, you need an oil change or you need a filter. That we handle. So a lot of times we'll send stuff out, whether it's a transmission, we'll pull the trans, send the transmission out, not the whole vehicle. And once the trans comes back, then we'll check it out. If it's not working properly before we put it in, we send it back to them. So before we do anything, it's always checked out. Usually it's head gaskets, or if it's a bad engine, or things of that nature. Not just for minor things, windshield wipers or oil changes or fan belts, any of that. That's all done in-house. It's the bigger jobs where it's going to tie a mechanic up, for like 3 or 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. We'd rather send it out because it's easier and it gives our guy an opportunity to go to something else. So we can get 2 or 3 vehicles out versus, tying up one vehicle. So there's a lot of thought, you want to say, that goes into this. It's not, well, let's just send the vehicle out. We're trying to do as much as we can now in-house.
So let me ask you, who's in charge of that?
Right now, we have a fellow by the name of Marty Valenti. He is the director of the automotive department.
He's the person.
He is the person. He is the guy.
Okay, 10 is air brake and equipment for repair of heavy-duty vehicles.
The vehicles that we're specifically talking about now are your large fire apparatus, your roll-off trucks, your sanitation trucks, the big stuff. The big stuff that you see running around, it's that kind of stuff. Yeah, that'll entail brake drums, things of that nature.
Z11, Zolan Corporation. I think they trade as AMCO. They do
That's correct.
transmissions.
That's correct. That here again is your light and medium. That will be your pickup trucks, your smaller vehicles. Not as big as, I'm going to use a roll-off truck, for example. These are middle-sized trucks, single-axle trucks, but big trucks, heavy-duty trucks.
All right, D12, Amber Air.
Okay, we're running into a problem, as you guys already know.
Yeah.
Our buildings, our heating systems, and a lot of our situations are running, the condition of these buildings, we're getting surprises. We have air conditioning problems, and we have heating problems. Oh, yes.
That's
Yeah,
why
both.
it's for HVAC, heating, ventilating, and air conditioning.
That's correct.
So this is company making?
Yes.
And we put in like the part order was $60,000. And how was it last year? They spent over $60,000 part orders?
Oh, easy, sure. What happens, if we don't do, I'll tell you what's going to happen. Last year, we're looking at new equipment where when you see cracks in the road, rather than not fill in the cracks with hard tar, it's a tar machine. We let them go, and the next thing you know, by that winter, after that winter, you can kiss that road goodbye. So what we're looking at, it'll be coming up in the capital budget, a tar machine where we can fill those in and try to save that road, try to get 2 more years out of the road or whatever, get better life. This scenario is for Amber Air to basically not only handle our boiler situations like we're running into in the police departments, firehouses, and even DPW, but also the air conditioning systems too. You have a system at DPW that is, what's the word I want to use? Not environmentally, it's a green, I refer to it as a green system, LEED certified system. It's a total nightmare. We can't handle it ourselves. It has to be sent out. We're locked in. So you'll call in somebody like, Amber Air to come in and to basically straighten it out. It's all computerized. It's centrally located. We can't go in and just reset the thermostat. We're locked in. It's totally, it's a LEED system.
Because it's a lead system, we don't have someone who has the qualifications.
We don't have the qualifications, and then a lot of it is proprietary.
Is what?
What am I looking for? Yeah, proprietary. Yeah, good. Mouth is going dry. But anyway, That's the dilemma that we're in on that.
C13 is Jewel Electric for electrical supplies. They're
This-
hiding
Good.
right under the turnpike there by the Conti School.
That's correct. This is various sorted light bulbs, electrical equipment, and supplies. I remember a few months ago when I first came on board, I made a comment that we're switching over a lot of our light bulbs, let's say, to LEDs, to basically cut down on electricity usage and also longer life on the light bulbs. So as they fail, we're replacing everything with LEDs. So that'll be included in this also, so you know.
Why you're seeing these many things from Public Works is because they're being proactive and they got the best fiscal officer in the city in Danny.
Danny's been very good. Danny's been working out. Even Steve right over here to my right. It's been a great asset to us, to me, at least. John Lynch has been good. The only negative I have with John Lynch is that he keeps supporting Army, and I don't know why. So he's a little confused. I think our last one,
This one's Z14, an open-end contract with Duncan Hardware to provide hardware supplies for DPW.
this includes just about everything, whether it's shovels, rakes. I mean, you can read what it says. I mean, floor tiles, drop ceilings. This is part of what we do with buildings and streets. When there's a problem with one of the buildings, we go in, and usually it's an emergency situation. Duncan Hardware is a Jersey City company. You know, he's the low bidder, and basically, you know, we've been using him. There are other vendors that we probably could go to, but they haven't bid on anything, and those would be like your Home Depots and your Lowe's, who are also located in Jersey City.
Shop local.
But they don't bid. But so basically, no. So what we've done is, you know, we've used Duncan Hardware, and at times for me, it gets frustrated because what he'll do is go to Lowe's or DPW and then come back, and then, you know, we get the part from him. But, you know, we need to look at that. So in the near future, I'm going to probably be in front of you looking for some type of request to deal with the Lowe's and the Home Depot, so we're dealing with them direct. But, you know, I'll go into more detail at a later date.
Okay, any questions? Hearing none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much,
Happy
gentlemen.
holidays.
Yes, sir.
You said you were going to speak to
Yes.
the camera system at the Bethune Center.
What we're looking at on the Bethune Center, so you know, is we're in the process of putting that into the next year's budget. We're not only looking at the camera system, updating that, we're also looking at the roof, the air conditioning, and other problems that have been going on at that building. You've had some roof problems, some water leaks, so we're going to be back, and it's going to be a thorough type of scenario so that we're not only going to include the cameras and an alarm system, but also fix all those things, so we get that off the repair list, and that's completed. And the reason for that is the amount of activity and the usage of that building. In that neighborhood, in that area, it's been very popular. It's been very good for the community, and I think, you know, I think the council has done a great job with it, and I'd like to see that to not fall down, you know, into making it any worse than what it is, and trying to correct it and improve on it.
So in the meantime, we don't have a camera system until
What we did, though, let me add on to that. What we did, camera system is standing by, it's just the money. So probably I'll be back in front of you as an emergency scenario for it's a combination, it's both camera and alarm, and I'll probably be back to you sometime in January to look for emergency money for that. So we can take care of that at least. But we have something worked out with the police. It's partially up and running with the alarm system. With the police will basically come in, they have the keys to the location so that when the alarm goes off, they can go right into the building and not sit outside and wait till somebody gets there to open it up. They already made those arrangements, so they have keys. If the alarm goes off, they'll come right in now. So it's not like, you know, not being protected. It does have an alarm system that was prepared. All right, I do want to take it to the next step with a camera system so we can, you know, we could try to catch someone before they come in and cause any damage.
Yeah, but actually, when we see the 10A,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to be allocate the building and street maintenance $100,000. I think that's the part of that you can use that money.
What am I looking at?
10A.
I don't have 10A, or do I have
10A. They have a new allocated dollars of 2017 budget. You know, up there, the building and street maintenance, they're gonna get the extra $100,000, you know what I'm saying? I think that they can use that, they're part of that, or DPW director's office get $130,000, so I don't know where they're gonna spend extra $130,000, more than what we allocated in 2017 budget. Use their money, they put in that, they fix that, the CCTV in the Bundes Center, so Councilman Robbins get happy with that. Instead to wait for next year, you know.
Okay, Councilman, I'm with you. The sooner we get it fixed, the better off we are.
Yeah.
And if you're giving the authorization to do that, I
Yeah.
have no problems
No,
whatsoever.
no, today, we're gonna do that today.
Okay.
Actually, this Wednesday, tomorrow.
All right.
Tomorrow is Wednesday? Oh, no. It's Wednesday.
Okay.
Tomorrow's Tuesday.
Amending,
Amending.
spending in 10A.
Yeah, 10A.
What do you want to amend? You don't have it.
10A is
What do
the
you want to take
appropriation
from?
transfer.
No, here's the transfer money to the $130,000.
Council members,
So Pat, thank you, great job. Would like you continue serving the city of Jersey and the people of Jersey City coming next 4 years.
I appreciate that. Coming as a new councilman means a lot. I'd just like to see more support for Navy versus Army, but, you know, I have to work on, Rich on that. You beat us by 1 point.
All right.
Thank you very much, Councilman, and and Councilwomen, I'd like to wish everyone a happy holiday, to you and your families.
I have to add election costs in there.
See, we didn't get the stick in the ground, they were like cases, what are they called?
You're not going to believe what I'm going to tell you, but I do have 30 of them waiting to be put in, but I just want to get past the winter. I made that commitment, and I'll live up to it. Put them in?
Okay.
All right.
Let's keep this agenda moving. We are at the top. Oh, I'm sorry, we have one more.
Yeah, we have Jay McManus.
Jay
That's all.
McManus.
If anyone, if the council has.
10M.
10M, have any questions about 10M? This is the settlement agreement with Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield and CarePoint Health. If anyone has questions on that.
Jay McManus. Good evening.
Thank you.
Tell us what you do for,
Yeah.
on behalf of the council.
Wait, he's gonna explain what he does, Councilman, before you question him.
We serve as the insurance consultant for the city, responsible for the management of the health care plans, which, as you know, are self-insured. We place reinsurance, we negotiate contracts on behalf of the city with other vendors.
So now, number one, that, what is it, CarePoint, right?
Yeah.
CarePoint and the city of Jersey, Blue Cross Blue Shield, they settled the case to $8.8 million. How much they claimed? Total claim was?
So the total claim that $8.8 million represents was $10.2 million.
$10.2 million.
Correct.
So in other words, the CarePoint is a very famous healthcare system in the United States. They price it very, very high, especially Bayonne Hospital is the highest fee they charge in, come on. You know, this is really.
They're high.
I can give you a little background
Yes,
on
please.
how this occurred. The city's health care plan for employees and retirees holds employees and retirees harmless in the event that they are admitted to an out-of-network hospital on an emergency basis, which makes sense. You can't select in network versus out-of-network if you're being transported there in an ambulance. In 2015 and 16, CarePoint acquired 3 major hospitals in local to Jersey City. At that time, those hospitals became out-of-network facilities, and as such, they're able to charge essentially whatever they want for services, and they did so. They charged high fees, and they recognized that the city holds their employees harmless against balanced billing over and above usual and customary. They don't. The city's contract with its employees and retirees protects them against balance billing for charges that exceed usual and customary. So as those charges were submitted to Blue Cross accrued them and paid those hospitals a usual and customary rate, essentially an in-network rate. So that overage of $10 million where the accrued represents the accrued charges for 2015, 16, and 17 for those billings by the hospital system which exceeded Horizon's usual and customary schedule. I'm sorry, question?
Keep going. I have some questions. I'll let you finish. I thought you were finished.
So, as part of a global statewide settlement between Horizon and CarePoint, the payment amount was negotiated down to roughly 87% of that outstanding accrued liability. Part of that settlement was an agreement by CarePoint to have their hospitals join the Horizon network, so that from this point forward, from October 30th forward, individuals that go into any of those CarePoint hospitals will still be held harmless, but the city will only be paying negotiated rates. Those negotiated rates have been settled. They're substantially lower than the out-of-network rates that had been accrued and then paid under this agreement as part of that settlement.
This has been ongoing. It's not a surprise. So we knew there was a big ticket amount of money owed. And two, we're not the only ones in this situation. Almost everybody who was involved with Horizon as either a third-party administrator or as an insurer has been faced with this issue. CarePoint, being, I guess, the principal offender, but there are other private hospitals.
Right. Again, this was part of a statewide settlement between Horizon and CarePoint. That statewide settlement was north of $75, $76 million, somewhere in that range.
So I had a bill. I'm just going to say this because if you ask me, what's going on is out and out fraud.
Yeah.
Out and out fraud.
I don't disagree with that, Councilwoman.
And I had I guess they didn't know that they had an intelligent person on the other side of the bill, and I went to the emergency room to have, in fact, there's pictures of it, in the paper of my thumb. I had my thumb cut, and CarePoint had the audacity. They submitted whatever they submitted, right? And the insurance company correctly wrote it down as they should. And then they resubmitted it as Candace had a private room. Candace didn't have a private room. And I had signed some, thing. That, of course, anybody signs something when your thumb is bleeding, for hours and hours and hours. You sign it when you come in. And I signed something that said they could advocate on my behalf. And Lord knows what that meant was that they were going to try and, in effect, screw me, the consumer, and or Jersey City, and or Blue Cross Blue Shield at their benefit. And I just, it's terrible that we even settled with them, because I think what's going on is out and out fraud.
Yes.
I was in no private room, and it's a loophole that exists that is the reason why healthcare costs are expounding throughout this country is this right here. It's unacceptable. It's really unbelievable.
When they say private room, maybe they're talking private bathroom.
No, what they mean is on the...
No, look.
The curtain in the ER hallway, when they put a piece of foam over my thumb 15 minutes later.
It's a settle is one thing.
Wasn't even considered ER treatment.
We feel like...
It's insane.
The way exec say, the way she said, they get robbed out tax dollars. I mean, so let me make it clear. $10.2 million is the top of what the Blue Cross Blue Shield pay as a market fee, whatever the contract fee, or is all total was $10.2 million? No.
The total settlement amount here is
$8.2 million.
$8.8. Correct. During that 3-year process, Horizon paid CarePoint the in-network rate, which is substantially lower. So Horizon paid CarePoint related to these claims, $2.2 million. In addition to that, this settlement amount is set at 8 point, I believe it's 8 point, right, correct.
How do we know that there aren't a bunch of situations like mine, which I'm gonna go on the record, is fraud?
Right.
We're gonna pay $140,000 a month for 4 years, is that correct?
Correct. So there's an upfront lump sum, and the negotiated settlement was to pay that over 4.5 years.
Christ Hospital located Jersey City Heights. Christ Hospital. And there was a before Christ Hospital, before they changed ownership, I like to keep the record for this one, was a community hospital. And they accept most of insurance policy, they accepted. And the CarePoint, after they took over that Christ Hospital, they changed to community as a non-profit organization to for-profit. All right? At the time, actually major concern of the people of Jersey City Heights. So now Christ Hospital will be charged the bill that whatever they like to do. They have no limit. Whatever they want, that's what we have to pay. At the time, we have a meeting with the Christ Hospital representative. We bring up the issue. If people of Jersey City use their emergency, actually they say Horizon Blue Cross Shield, Jersey, blah, 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 medical service, care of health, what is it called? Okay, emergency case, they say if people use their insurance policy to use emergency room, they have to charge whatever the price they have. But if patient do not pay in 3 months, then they're going to be waived at the difference, and they're going to settle the case, accept whatever insurance company pay. That's what we understand.
Yeah,
that's
the
we
next level of fraud that's happening.
Right.
But actually, that's what they say. But now, what we get totally different. The numbers we get. Number one, and number two, CarePoint have issue. They contribute $1 million to our elected officer. They are very influenced to contribute, political contribute, and the city of Jersey elected officer. And now they ask, we got to settle with $8.8 million. So I feel like we take money from the taxpayer and pay off them, and they contribute the political. I think there's something wrong here. I feel very uncomfortable with that case.
Let me weigh in this, because you gotta be very careful. Like, you can't just say whatever nonsense comes to your mind, and you gotta be very careful when you say certain things. But I think that it's important that you understand, first and foremost in this situation, there's no one up here who doesn't agree with you that CarePoint has practices that we don't like or approve of and that need to change. I want to be clear about that, because that is something that all of us have advocated for. That's how we got into these meetings. You made a comment about how residents were going to be treated, which, even of itself, to Councilwoman Osborne's point, sounds like fraud. Sounds like fraud, because it is not an acceptable practice to overbill somebody and then say, but if they don't pay it, we'll write it off. For a whole bunch of reasons, there's tax implications to that kind of behavior, things that other agencies will look into. But what I will say to you is, whatever it is that was committed to you guys, that involved general Jersey City residents. And at the time, I believe it was around the ambulance contract. What we're talking about here is city employees, not residents. And this activity could have happened anywhere. It didn't have to happen at Christ. It could have happened at any CarePoint hospital throughout the state. And what we're talking about here is when an employee who's insured goes and receives some sort of medical services from a CarePoint hospital, that employee is billed a certain amount. And this is to Candace's point.
Under the ACA, it's $50,
right,
and whatever, and they started to say, oh, it's a private thing, it wasn't an emergency care, and it's bilking Jersey City taxpayers.
Right. So not just Jersey City taxpayers, actually all insured parties. This is why Horizon acted on everyone's behalf and pursued this litigation. We've pursued this litigation aggressively. I would love to tell you that it's realistic that we're not going to have to pay any money because these people didn't behave fairly or appropriately, but that's not how the world works. We're going to be on the hook for some amount of money. If you're telling me you think that Horizon on our behalf didn't get enough of of a settlement in our favor, that's a legitimate point and something that we can look into. If you're telling me that you feel that we should actually go forward and litigate this issue because we feel that we have strong claims, that's a legitimate point. But I just want to refocus the conversation because what we're talking about here is offsetting, and this is to a point that you actually made earlier, where you said, or actually Councilman Gatson made it earlier in another case. We said, well, if we're going to spend $200,000 trying this thing, why don't we just settle it? If we were to go forward and try to litigate this matter, you're talking about millions of dollars to litigate this. CarePoint has a very strong, let's call it a very strong litigious aspect to them. And so to use your example, Councilman, because you brought it up, you talked about forms you signed and then things that you did. So we would actually have to, just for your one little situation, litigate through all those layers before we got to a point of whether we're saying they overcharged for the services or not. The cost for doing that, just for that one thing, would outweigh the expense of paying for it. And that's what we're up against, and that's one of the reasons why Horizon litigated it on our behalf as opposed to us doing it ourselves, because at least they had the pooled risk, which allowed the litigation to be a little bit more cost efficient. But in this case, we're recommending the settlement because it is, unfortunately, the lesser of two evils. But no one's advocating it.
Can I follow up with a question on that? Because the one difference with us is that we're self-insured. So when they went, does that include their own stuff that they're backing in terms of their own insurance pool?
Yeah, so if you want to go back and...
So interests are truly aligned, that they're actually,
Right. So
if they're willing to accept it for themselves before they push it onto us.
If you could go over, to the extent you can share anything of how much Horizon had to pay for their insured population versus their TPA population.
I'm not sure what those numbers are, but I will say this. We know that the self-insured settlement was $75 million, of which Jersey City was part of that settlement. Self-insurance represents about 10% of Horizon's overall book of business, so you can extrapolate what that number is. It was obviously a significant number.
Horizon did pay also their own money.
They paid a tremendous amount of money to the settlement.
Just to be clear, 90% of the settlement impacted them in their own book of, their own risk pool that they're paying off of, versus self-insured at the same rate.
Correct.
The self-insurance.
I wouldn't be married to 90%.
Sure, yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, that's fine.
They settled on their fully insured book of business.
I have another comment to make whenever you're done.
And while we have in the litigation with, that the Blue Cross Horizon, whatever the litigation, still we have several countries with CarePoint to some business with them, right?
Absolutely, we do.
Yeah.
Sure do. They provide, I think they provide physical services for us, employees for our, they do, yeah. And they take a certain contract on that, yeah. Those are controlled costs, though. Yeah, those costs are controlled and agreed to by contract.
So just while we're on the record, I want to explain to the city of Jersey City the other area where we're getting ripped off, because it's super clear to me. It's in blood work. Because in blood work, what happens is doctors have deals with out-of-network providers.
Yeah.
They give without asking you, you go to an in-network provider, you go to the doctor, they send the blood work to an out-of-network provider. The out-of-network provider isn't covered by your insurance, isn't covered by Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield.
That's what we do.
Jersey City pays, call it, I don't know the rate, let's just for the sake of argument say 50%. They pay 50%, which is lower than the rate that they would pay if they had a negotiated agreement. And those guys give kickback to the doctors. It's super clear. And they send you a bill for the whole amount, but then if you call them, because you'll be furious, like, I'm not going to pay you $4,000, right? And so you call them, they're like, oh, no, you actually don't know that money. So it's even worse, because you don't, if you call them, they say, oh, by the way, you don't have to pay the full amount. Just give us the check from your insurance company. Right. So they're ripping off the city of Jersey City.
So no, before...
No, that's happening all over. It's happening. It's happened to me 3 times this year.
So it's even though I go doctor's office.
And that's taxpayer dollars.
Yes, Candice. Councilman. When I went to the 4 different doctors, they examined the blood works, all kind of tests we done. Same things. Even though they're out of network, they actually internally, they settled the case that whatever insurance company, they're happy with that. we only pay co-payment, whatever I deduct, whatever they.
Sure.
That's why we did that.
It's raising
But-
healthcare costs for everyone.
Right, so
This is
now,
why healthcare is expensive.
Do we have any other way to review one more time? They're probably out there company, do consulting company, professional company, review the all the $10 million claim to item by items, you know what I'm saying? To overlook at those things, maybe reclaim. They have some systems probably available there. Instead to pay $8.8 million settlement, something we unhappy with that organization really. I'm not happy with that.
What is the State Department banking insurance done in this, Dobie? Have they litigated this or regulated?
Look at this?
They did look at it. It was looked at by a number of agencies. They are, there's no current legislation that sets usual and customary charges for out-of-network hospitals. For hospital charges, there are usual and customary levels for professional services. So there's some, I don't want to say pending legislation, but proposed legislation that would prohibit this type of behavior going forward. Outside of what's occurred here at Jersey City. The ongoing liability for Jersey City will be capped now beginning November 1 because these hospitals have agreed to come in network. And there was some urgency to get settlement done because CarePoint was not necessarily in a hurry to conclude this settlement because they continued to accrue potential income, you know, over and above usual and customary as this dragged on. So Jersey City pushed hard to get this done and concluded, and as part of that settlement, again, I know I'm repeating, but part of that settlement is bringing these facilities in network so that there isn't any balance billing, there's no negotiation on individual hospital bills. All of those rates are preset as part of those contracts that the hospitals have entered. Those hospitals enter 3 to 5 year contracts going forward.
We need to do the same thing. What we need to do is we need to, when we're negotiating with Horizon, Blue Cross Blue Shield, we need to say to them, we don't want any doctors in network if they don't use in-network blood work. And that will solve the problem.
Can we do that?
You absolutely should, because the taxpayers are getting ripped off on this.
We can.
How about CAT
There's an issue with blood work,
scans,
there's also an
MRIs?
issue with some other.
I'm sure that, probably MRIs or anything else, I'm sure.
We had the imaging, that's when the imaging issue actually led to a criminal.
Yeah. But this is.
And actually, why don't we just ask, can we just have Horizon follow up on that blood work issue specifically?
We will, specifically on the blood work issue, and I would expand that to the imaging issue as well.
Examples of where this is going on. It's, in my mind, it's legal. I understand that it's legal, but it's, to me, 2 steps away from corruption. It's legalized corruption as far as I'm concerned. It is definitely milking the Jersey City taxpayer.
Yeah. So how we can punish them? How we can punish them?
Become a state legislator.
It's really, it's a legislative issue. We have actively worked with the committee in assembly to push legislation that would prohibit this type of behavior. We're moving in that direction. We're getting legislation moved in that direction. We're not where we want to be, but we need to get to a point where legislatively those charges are controlled so by law so that we don't continue to get this kind of leakage. It's really a legislative issue.
Given what Councilperson Osborne has argued with regard to being borderline criminal, not knowing exactly what the crime would be on that, but yeah, has the Attorney General or anyone like at the state level again taken a look at this or? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the AG, I know that this practice, particularly with the balance billing, has been being looked at closely by several agencies. Yeah. I don't know what the extent of those. They don't take.
Could we look at that to see it, like where that is before we approve something?
They would never talk to us about an ongoing investigation if there was one.
But what you can do, as this body, I mean, I won't be here in 20 days, but what this body can do is say, when you go out to bid, we want all of our covered providers.
Yes.
Our covered providers must only use in-network services. No, which basically says you can't have a side deal with blah, blah, blah blood work company. And that's absolutely within the power of going to bid.
We can absolutely do that. Make that part of the specifications. You may substantially pare down the number of responding physicians that'll stay in network, but we can make that certainly part of the specifications.
Then you're exposing the issue.
Folks, but great, we have money to pay.
Yeah, where is the money?
We have no choice.
Well, who's paying it?
The city.
Out of general operating? Or is that?
It'll probably come out of the insurance fund.
Yeah, but the insurance fund is, yeah, the insurance fund is funded by the general fund, so.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
it's coming out of taxation.
All right, thank you, Jay.
Thank you. There was
Happy.
one other issue, maybe you want to address the resolution to approve the free insurance contract, or should I wait and I'll come back later?
No, let's do that. Which one is it?
That would be item,
What are we talking about?
Z16.
Z16 is a resolution awarding to Sun Life Assurance Company of Canada to provide stopgap insurance for employees and retirees as an extraordinary unspecifiable service. That covers events over $250,000?
It does. I'll provide a brief explanation. We had this conversation last year. Because the city self-insures its health insurance program for employees and retirees, that means that theoretically the city is on risk for each and every claim regardless of the amount of that claim. We've had transplant claims and other very complex claims that have reached well into the $1 million+ range. So historically what the city has done is it's purchased stop-loss reinsurance. It's an insurance contract that essentially indemnifies the city for any claim that exceeds, any particular claim that exceeds a particular level. We're recommending that level be set at $250,000 for the coming plan year. Historically, it's been set at $225,000, but we do what's called a break-even analysis. And based on history, we think that a $250,000 deductible or attachment point would be more cost-effective, cheaper fixed costs for the city than $225,000. We think it's very important that the city maintain this type of coverage. There's no limit to it. It rides along with the Affordable Health Care Act, which does not put limits on the amount of coverage available to employees for ordinary expenses, so that in the event a claim is incurred with unlimited expenses, the Sun Life contract will attach and reimburse beginning at $250,000, run all the way up to whatever the limit of the claim is.
So simple is that over $250,000, the insurance company kick in to pay over $250,000, but they have no limit.
Okay.
And the cost is $2.9 million.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a 5% increase over last year's premium. And on a rolling 5-year basis, we find that of the premium expenditures by the city, roughly 85% of that expenditure comes back in claim reimbursements. Claim reimbursements may be several $1 million in a given year and substantially less than that in any other year. But in order to properly budget, you really need to have that reinsurance in place so we can budget going forward, and we don't run a deficit in any given year as a result of large claims.
$2.9 million include the premium and also administration costs is all inside, right? So how much is the administration cost other than just net premium?
We don't know. It's the insurance company's actual premium. Insurance companies are required, though, to run an 85% loss ratio, so it's safe to assume that administrative expenses plus profit margin does not exceed 15%. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you for staying so late.
Absolutely. Appreciate your attention.
We have, ma'am, what was your name? Kelly Brennan, 10Z39, it's a late item.
Well, actually, council members, we have a little problem with the numbering.
10Z39.
Yeah, there is no 10Z39. There's no 10Z, 37, 38, or 39. They should be 34, 35, and 36. If you look at your agenda,
So there should be
it
36.
stops at 33. Is this the removal of the tax sale
Yes,
certificates?
it is.
That will be 10Z 36. If you would kindly just cross out the 39 and put a 36 there.
36.
36. It's on 39. It was a late item that was handed out at the beginning of the meeting.
And it's not 980 either,
It says 10Z39 on it.
but it's, it was, I handed it right to you, Rich.
I know, I got 37, I got 38.
It's probably stuck at the very bottom.
On the bottom.
Yeah.
Stuck to it,
Yeah,
okay.
just,
Okay, so resolution authorizing the removal of the tax lien certificates against block 21902.04, lot 2, and block 21902.02, lot 2 from the tax lien sale.
So I'll actually cover off on this one. What's going on here is, there's property, that's involved in the NJCU campus expansion on the west side. That property is currently owned, by NJCU, which is a tax-exempt entity, but it's gonna be used for the future development of that campus. That development's being done in public-private partnership. And so when the land was put into that structure, you guys have approved abatements and things of that nature on this property. It triggered an open question here as to whether it should be taxed as property for private use. We've been in open discussion with the council from the different entities involved, and we don't have resolution on that yet. We're waiting for the assessor to get to a place where he's comfortable. What we're probably gonna end up doing is not taxing the property while it's being laid dormant, because that would be taxing NJCU. But when the property is developed, it'll be taxed pursuant to the abatements that are structured around those developments. Here, because there was an assessment on the property, the collector went out to try and collect, and then didn't, and then issued liens, and now is trying to sell the liens. We don't want to go forward and sell these liens and sell these properties, because we're going to end up having to get it back. Our goal here is to have NJCU's campus expand, not anything else.
Can I have your name, please? I'm so sorry.
Kelly Brennan.
Brennan.
Yep.
So to resolve this matter, we probably don't have to do a resolution, but in abundance of caution and clarity, I want to do a resolution so everyone is fully clear as to what happened here and what's being done here. So it's all being done publicly and openly. Okay, I don't know if you want to add anything else, Council.
Says it all.
Kelly, did you handle 37 Baldwin?
No, I didn't. I was sure.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Were you here for a specific item?
I was asked to attend just in case there was discussion about Z31, the assignment of Whitlock.
Why don't we take that on our desk and let this item? 10Z31?
One is a resolution approving the sale of 160 Lafayette Street by New Jersey Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency to 160 Lafayette Associates LP to assume the city's mortgages and to subordinate the city's mortgages to 3 new first mortgages against the property. What is your name, sir?
Joseph Portelli,
Spell your last name?
Portelli. Yep.
This is for Whitlock, right?
This is for the Whitlock Mills project. Yeah.
You remember Whitlock? 70% affordable units, how many was that, 300 plus units?
330 units, 230 affordable, 100 market rate. And the purpose of this resolution is to allow the new project to assume the existing city mortgages that are on the property. The city had previously made a home loan and an affordable housing trust fund loan to the old project. So by assuming it, it will preserve the city's interest in the project, so make sure that existing investment wasn't squandered, and just really update the new facts and structure of the transaction moving forward.
Doing the Ocean Avenue 4 or 5.
We're still doing it.
Scatter.
The scatter site project?
We approved the, extending the execution of the agreements, right? On that?
You extended, because I wasn't
We did.
here.
Yeah,
I
the
remember I
council.
read it.
Okay. Well, we had applied for additional affordable housing trust funds, so that's pending. We received an initial award, which is DCD is working on making that a formal approval now. But we had submitted another application in the fall
But why? Because I know when you came the first time, you said based on what you applied for, that was sufficient enough.
We had applied.
And you're ready, and you was ready to go.
We had applied for 3 million, but only 1 million was awarded.
Right, and you were
So-
saying based on that, you were still ready to go.
No,
That's
we-
what, I mean, I was there.
No, we needed a commitment for 100% of the funds at one time. We didn't necessarily need to use them all at one time, but we needed an upfront commitment, knowing that the money was in place. So, can be done in chunks. Need to be, all 3 million at one time, and then draw down, in parts. Yeah.
You know, what you guys, submitted for and what the committee gave, that was sufficient enough for you to start your project, to break ground. Because I knew you were supposed to be breaking ground way back. That was told to us, because I know even when I was going around the city and they was asking me about those projects, I know those projects should have been breaking ground. So when I saw that the other week, I wasn't here.
We're trying to get started later this year. Middle of this year. Depends on when next year, 2018. It depends. It depends on what happens with the trust funds.
Folks, we need to have one conversation going on here.
So what we need to do is get a date certain. You're gonna start by this date, or there's gonna be changes to whatever the structure is. So obviously, we're not gonna do that on the spot, but.
We have an RDA, and we have enough time under the RDA. It really all depends on, the trigger is the commitment for the balance of the trust funds, really. So I don't know what that timing is.
So we're gonna dig in, so he's saying it's not that you're there, but we're gonna dig in with Dave, and we'll get a start date for you, and/or a change, and move the trust fund dollars somewhere where they can go to work. No, they don't have all the trust fund dollars. You do have some of the trust fund dollars, though.
Yes, they didn't get awarded all of them. They didn't get the full ask, correct?
No, they did.
Was it 3 million?
Yes.
And we got one?
One.
But based on what they asked me, they said it was sufficient enough to start the project. And I remember I thought, because then I was letting people know that there would be projects going on Ocean Avenue. And it was supposed to break ground this year. I remember.
No, this is not Ocean Avenue.
No, I know. This is what.
We were talking about Ocean Avenue, yeah.
He knows what he's talking about. So that's why.
Yeah, I thought that was a conversation as well, that 1 million could get the project started, and then we will be able to, move on phase by phase.
No, we're doing all 5 sites at one time, so we need all the money in place. We don't need the dollars in the bank account from day one. That can come in as the project progresses, but we need a commitment for 100% of the money up front, so that we can bring the other money into the project to get started. To bridge. It's a bridge to the 3 million.
So what you're saying is that until you get the commitment or your hands on the 3 million, the project will just sit.
That's right.
So what happens to?
It doesn't mean that we're not doing anything. We're doing our construction drawings. We have our tax credit award, so we're taking steps towards construction, but we can't put a shovel into the ground until we know that the money to finish the project is going to be there.
So when do you need the commitment by?
As soon as it can be done.
So if you get a commitment in 18 months, what does that do for the project?
Right. Our redevelopment agreement with JCRA says that we don't get started, we don't take title until we have the full funding in place, because JCRA doesn't want to give away property that's not going to get developed. So when we have the full funding in place, then we can take title and get to work.
Okay. 10Z31.
Going back to there. Any questions on that? 10Z31? Hearing none, thank you, sir. Let's go from the top. Second reading ordinances. Let your questions be asked now.
4L.
Okay, then 4P, I gotta ask.
All right, that's
That was 4L then.
Okay.
providing payments to the public schools from long-term tax exemptions.
That had been proposed in the springtime. and I remember bringing up a number of reasons why I didn't think it was a good idea.
Yeah, just
I
speak
said
up,
it was
Frank.
proposed in the springtime, and I brought up a series of reasons why I believed it wasn't a good idea. And this is no change from the one in the springtime that was withdrawn. I don't know why it's back.
Right.
Raymond
I thought y'all were gonna
actually
change it.
changed it.
What happened?
What changed?
What you changed?
Okay, what changed is that first time they put in an actual rule was, I cannot remember that.
It's paying convention.
What was it? Can't you remember that?
Same amount as you would pay convention, 25%.
Was it?
That was the first.
Yeah. I think that there was a problem, the word, so that's why we pulled it out. We amended, actually, Article 8, 304-39, and A, like Apple. So 1, 2, that's where we changed it. But we don't have that, because it's we've introduced a couple of times, that's why we don't have the actually comparison in the before after that, but this is what it was, okay?
Mike, you got that paper you said earlier?
Oh, God, that was May, was it, Frank? Was it May?
It was in springtime.
Think about where we are now. It was ordinance 150, we're at 175 now.
Right.
So it couldn't have been very long ago.
The objections that I raised in the springtime had to do with the fact that you're adding on an additional.
Oh, yeah. That was,
charge.
yeah. Right, Frank.
Go ahead, Frank.
You are very good. I give you
Right.
a lot of credit. Because it was, was additional.
That's what it says here.
But now, this is additional. So in other words, generally, the annual service charge is a 10% annual gross revenue, okay? And additional 2.5% and annual gross revenue. That was additional. The last one didn't use the word additional. That's what was the problem.
Well, the problem is that.
What is the problem?
Problem is that we've gone through a whole bunch of development downtown.
Okay.
And we all seen
Right.
what happened down here. I mean, I can
Right.
tell you from the 1950s when I came down here as a little boy playing at my grandmother's house, and I can tell you how it changed. In the 1970s, I was an undercover officer buying heroin on the street down here.
Okay.
So downtown take a big change in some areas. My grandmother's house, the brownstone sold for $20,000. It's probably worth like millions
Right,
now,
okay.
right? So the abatements that were given were not the end all to everything downtown. They didn't, in and of themselves created, but without them, you wouldn't see what you see now. You would be far behind. And coupled with those abatements, you see great economic development, where people can walk outside their houses and go to a variety of restaurants on many streets.
Yeah.
You don't see that up in A, you don't see that up in F.
You got
In
it,
parts
okay.
of B, you don't see that, because this development hasn't reached there yet. It's like ripples in the water, where you drop the big rock in and it spreads out. So like in the old days, when we used to say it was broken windows, when the 60s and 70s were happening in parts of downtown, where buildings were being abandoned. I was doing surveillances from buildings on Mercer Street, a couple of blocks in here, that were brownstones, that I know that they sold later on for $15,000 a piece, on Mercer and Barrel. Now, the development came in and all that changed. Neighborhoods got better. People that didn't buy those places and had homes in the areas, they started taking better care. It's like you go from when you have one bad thing happen and a lot of bad things happen, when you have good things happen, what you have is a diffusion of benefits, and it spreads. People in Ward A and Ward F and parts of Ward B have been waiting for decades for that to happen, for finally to see new buildings going up. When you look at like Ocean Avenue South, if they're gonna do a development there, they ain't gonna do it without an abatement.
No, sure.
And the ones that we were just talking about down New Jersey City University, those were not like, a couple of them were a little tenuous at best. They get on extra charges and start telling people, well, now we're gonna charge you another 2.5%. I know one of them that almost didn't make it to this table. That's the people have been waiting in Ward A and Ward F to see these bigger projects happen. It's not like now we finally have areas in downtown where they're not even using abatements.
Okay,
anymore.
now, can I say something?
When I'm done, you can
Yeah,
say
okay,
something.
go ahead.
So we finally see something spreading, which we see now in New Jersey City University, and you want to put this in play, which is going to give an additional charge, because you say it's going to give an immediate effect to the funding. It's not going to give an immediate effect to the funding. Even if it went in place, you wouldn't see that funding for years. And the second part is, if you stifle those developments, not only are you not going to see the funding that you think you're going to get, but the projects that would have happened in Ward A and Ward F and parts of Ward B are not going to happen.
Oh.
That's my objection.
Okay, so now, Frank, I'm going to ask you, I'd like you to answer for the mic question. Yes, yes, okay, great.
You make your opinion known. This is not a question and answer period. I made my opinion known, you make your opinion known, and everybody can vote the way they want.
Okay, Councilman Frank, thank you for your opinion, but we got to look at it this way. In other words, your long-term maker show simply is that tax abatement continue that shouldn't be funding for school, period. That's what you mean?
No, that's right. First of all, don't put words in my mouth.
No,
Second
that's what it
of all-
is, because you believe that,
You're
that.
putting words in
you-
my mouth. No, you put words
What
in
is
my
that?
mouth.
What is
You
it?
tell me why you think this is good, and that's your point.
Yeah.
Don't put words in my mouth to say what I think about abatements and to fund schools. Let me tell you something. At Thanksgiving Day, when I have Thanksgiving dinner, all but 2 adults in that house either work for the Jersey City school system or they worked for it, including a former principal. I know all about the school system and about the funding. What I'm telling you is that this doesn't work to fund the school system, because ultimately, you're not going to get any additional money, because the things that were going to happen aren't going to happen. And it's not going to happen in the immediate time. You wrote the word immediate. What you think is going to happen next month and the month after? If you're looking for immediate funding, you're not going to get it from this. Make your point, I made my point.
Okay, good. Okay, this is what it is. Over the years, they have all the projected abatement, they have no funding at all to school, period. And the meantime, all those high-rise buildings continue bring up the student in our school systems. But even though when they come in from the student from our school system, pouring that all the costs have to pick up by regular taxpayer of Jersey City. So they have no fairness to sharing school tax. So somehow we have to creative sharing. So now, state of New Jersey, join, if I'm wrong, correct me, and we can receive that around the maximum 15% of annual gross service charge. And currently, in most cases, like a 10%. So even though 10% means that annual gross revenue means that usually they get 50%, around the 45% lower than a traditional taxpayer. That the taxes. So they get 45% discount. So even though 2.5%, they count enough to encourage continue to do tax. Development in the area, because they only go to maximum 12.5%. Continue encourage to do that because still they're cheaper than state maximum, And we have to prepare for now, correct the problem for the future. Somehow we have to do study. Other than that, the way you argue is that we gotta wait till the developed whole citywide, then we never gonna have.
That's not my argument. My argument is that this doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work because you're not gonna get the funding you say you're gonna get.
No.
Because
But
people
so
won't
now
have
talking about today. If
Right.
they do
Argument,
in the
I mean,
future.
But let's, Councilman Yun, finish your point. Councilman Yun, then Councilman Gadsden, Councilperson Osborne.
Development will continue, contribute to school. That's why we build the system now, so we can protect the future of school system, Georgia City. That's what it is. We not expect 2008 to get some millions of dollars come from the project, the pilot program. But we build up the system now, so maybe 5-10 years later, they have some fairness bring that the sharing school tax. That's what it is. Okay, now you can say anything more. Okay.
You need a better way of doing
Okay,
it.
the
This
better-
is not correct.
Councilperson Gadsden.
Frank,
And then
when you say better, tell me which way is better.
You're gonna do it because you're gonna be here.
Councilperson Gadsden and Councilperson Osborne.
I mean, I guess the original way of looking at this was at that time, the mayor had said 10%, and that's practice right now. So 10% goes towards Jersey City Public Schools. At the time, back in the spring, they introduced something that was kind of like, I guess, catastrophic to taxpayers when you say 25% of conventional tax, as if you would pay conventional taxes, which was kind of like, whoa, this is crazy. But this plan right here just basically calls for an additional 2.5 to be added, to the mayor. And the way I look at this is the mayor started something back in the spring, which is very much necessary. But just asking that it just increases. Also that it's codified. It's basically, it's law. And the only thing that I had uncertainties with, and we had this discussion, I guess, about a couple of months ago, was either with the mayor's plan of executive order and with this, the allocation of where the money, would go. And I guess ultimately the school district will have to determine once projects are finished and they start paying money towards the school, they will make that determination on like how they're going to spend the money, whether it be.
I don't agree with the school making a decision. I think we get money, we should say where we want that money.
No, that was the discussion.
I would agree with Councilperson Johnson finish. Yeah.
But that was the discussion that we left, and that was the only thing that was left, I guess, hanging out there. Like, what, how would the 10% in the executive order,
Right.
or how would this right here be? How would the schools allocate? That was the only thing that was left out there. Because the only thing this ordinance acts is for is just an increase and a little bit more going towards the school. And then that whole conversation of the third part of that conversation was, does this nullifies the mayor's executive order and this right here trumps that?
I don't know that we got a legal determination on that.
So a couple things to understand here is, first and foremost, I don't know, and I've been trying to get some clarity on it. There is no clarity because no one has really tried to do this in this way as to the permissibility of this structure at all. We're not structured as an entity that's supposed to fund public school education in this way. We have certain granting functions that we do that have processes in place for how the city takes city money and gives it to other nonprofit entities. There's no structure in place for us to give money that we collect from any revenue stream to the school board. So would have to be all kinds of structures around even making that possible, if it is even legally permissible. But this is gonna be a complicated analysis, so I just wanna go through it.
The council, corporation council bring up the issue now. You should bring up that issue when the mayor say they're going to give 10% annual gross revenue to school. That time you should bring that issue.
So if you listen to what I said, which I really encourage you to try and do, I said, we've been looking into this question and I can't find any legal guidance. It's what we call in the law an issue of first impression. No one's tried to take abatement money and give it to the school board before. So there is no case law on this. So what we then do is we look back to the statutes that enable the city to spend money, and there's nothing in those statutes that say, oh, you can spend money in this way.
So you've
That
been
means,
looking into this since the mayor did his executive order?
Yes.
So this is something you've been concerned about since then?
yes, and I raised these concerns, and when I was first asked about the mayor's executive order, I said I had these concerns. And we've been looking at these concerns, and I don't.
They have several tax abatement actually. We did approve that.
I was going to say that there's about 4 different projects, or 4 or 5 projects.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot easier to get through this if you just let me finish. Okay, so we've been going through this analysis trying to figure it out, but the fundamental difference between the mayor's structure, and one of the reasons why the mayor ended up in an executive order, because he also wanted a resolution initially, if you remember, as opposed to a resolution, is the difference is the mayor's, is the way the city budgets money, is the mayor submits a budget to you guys, and then you guys review and adopt the budget or not. An executive order binds the executive as to how it's supposed to proceed, but it does not bind the entire city apparatus. There's, branches of government. So what the mayor does in his executive orders, he says in his budget, he's going to propose 10%, and by the way, it's 10% of the collected service charge. So it's not a new charge. It's 10% of what we're collecting toward the school board. Now, at that point in time, there are structures in place that have us go through your budgeting process, and then there's also local finance and state review. If, without really having the proper guidance, to know how, or to predict how people are gonna react. If someone at any one of those levels of reviews has issues, it gets addressed then. Local finance may say this is great, and I think they probably will, because that will just mean they're gonna give our school less money. But, that's for them to figure out. Absolutely. Absolutely. But that's not the point. The point is, there's checks and balances in play in that structure. When you guys, from your perspective, it is.
I was gonna get it at the end on that.
But-
They'll just take it from us, so you're not getting anywhere.
What you guys are proposing with an ordinance is something different, because you're taking a budget function, which has a whole series of required steps, and circumventing it. When you pass an ordinance of this nature, I don't know that it's legally permissible. I think it's not, because you cannot take from the budget process something and remove it, with the exception of revenue streams where you've gone through a local finance and state review and created what's called a dedicated rider.
So then why don't we do this way? Change some word. Why don't we do that?
No, there's no changing. You could do something aspirational.
You change the words, you can't change the law.
Okay, yeah, so to change the word.
So you could say, we encourage the city, we.
Can't we just find out first what we can do with the mayor's executive order?
Well, that's for you guys to decide.
I mean, that, because we don't have clarity on that.
Maybe,
Councilperson Osborne.
I'm sorry, man.
Robinson.
so, to solve that problem, this is not what I wanted to talk about, but because I like to solve problems, and I can't help myself. To solve that problem, are you saying that the city council should do a resolution?
Well, either whatever gets done, it should recognize that there's an independent process through the budgeting process, and that's where it has to be addressed. But keeping in mind, the structure is the mayor submits a budget to you guys for your adoption, and you adopt. So you can make amendments to the budget at that time if you'd like. By the way, the mayor doesn't have to accept those amendments. It's a check and balance in the system. But the point of the matter is you cannot mandate, because let's say you pass this ordinance now, mandate this spending, and the next council doesn't want to do that budget. You cannot mandate it in this way. What you have to try and do, if you want, is something aspirational, like we encourage the mayor to recommend that a certain amount of money be collected through the abatement process, or we would like to see in the budget process a certain amount of money, and we will encourage council to adopt budgets only that have that in it. Those are ways you can do it, but you can't mandate it. You're trying to tie your own hands to the future. You can't do it.
Just to speak to that example, former Councilman Fulop, when Mayor Healy was the mayor, made an aspirational resolution urging the administration to dedicate 2% of hotel tax revenues to an arts fund that didn't exist because there was no dedicated rider, which I've pursued on that, and our office has been trying to see if we can get some kind of dedicated rider around that. Haven't been able to accomplish that, but again, it was just aspirational because they knew, and the administration at that time said you couldn't establish that kind of fund. You're taking it out of the budget process and so forth, right?
The other thing I would tell you is abatements have an independent process, which is what I wanted to get to. So now you're basically saying, so the mayor has a policy, right, that says that he's going to recommend abatements that fit certain criteria. It is a policy. He can actually recommend abatements that don't have those, and you guys can adopt abatements that don't have those things in it. But what it does is it provides clarity to the system. So there's value to that. But when you take it to the level of having it be mandatory, that's when you trigger certain legal issues. So here you're saying that you want, whatever the service charge is, you want an additional charge charged to any of the entities that get an abatement. I don't know that that's permissible, and specifically because the statute enables how you charge service charges and abatements. So Is that from the state? Yes, the state statute. So what you're saying is, in the pilot payment, whatever the city negotiates, there has to be an additional certain amount. So what you're really saying is you're recommending to the mayor who negotiates abatements that whatever he tries to negotiate with the abatements, that he also include 2.5% more for the and then that money be allocated to the school. Now, the reason why there's some issues there and that this is not ready to even really be done is because not all abatements are structured in that way. Some abatements are structured on a cost of construction analysis, right? Some abatements are done under affordable housing using a different statute. So the problem with this solution more than anything else, is it's not structurally sufficient to deal with all the scenarios that come up in the abatement and how abatements are negotiated. So we have to deal with that issue as well. And the only thing I wanted to be clear is, if, for the mayor's plan and even for this one, if we were going to give the money, it would have to go in some form of, I guess, a gift to the school board. And so you're talking about who would get to decide how that money gets used. I don't know how you would structure that. You could try to do a contract with the school board, but once you've, in theory, mandated it, there's no reason why the school board would negotiate that with you. You would, once you've mandated it, that's their windfall, and then you would see the school board literally suing us to get that money, whether you guys liked the use or not. So there's a lot, and no one's here has spoken to the school board. No one's asked the school board if they need the money. They say they need the money. The school board always wants more money. We know that. No one's asked what they would do with it, how they would use it, how they would account for it. Are they obligated? Nothing in the ordinance says they're obligated to give an accounting to us. So there's a lot of, so it's just frankly not a well thought through council infrastructure.
So I never made my point. I was actually just trying to problem solve other discussion. So the one, I guess, question, and so in my perspective, the spirit of this is good. So I appreciate the spirit of this. I guess the question, I have some concerns, which I guess are not necessarily relevant right this second. I suppose I could share them, but beyond my concerns, I guess, is like more of a technical question, which is, you know, when we were, so I remember I sat the first year on the abatement committee forming the policy for the abatements, and as many of you know, I was very against the buy-ups. I didn't like the buy-ups. I tried to try to get them out of there. They're now not part of the process anymore. But one of the things I remember in those conversations that we always had is we had a financial analysis by our financial advisor. And so I just want to make like I would like for our financial advisor to be here to give us the review, because that's what he's always done before, is given us a review of like the changes that we're going to make and what the impact is. And I feel like for Wednesday night we need to make sure that we have the financial advisor to give it, you know, I don't know, what is their MW, or what is their name?
Yeah.
Blah, 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 financial. I feel like they need to, they need to present it to us.
I think you need to ask the BA to send it to them and get an analysis
So
first.
have they not done it?
No, there's been no request to do that. It's,
I don't know,
Wait a minute.
what analysis are you asking for?
Well, we always, no, guys, come on. We always do an analysis when we change the abatement policy. This has been since day one, we've done this.
Well, the analysis in the past.
This has not been done?
No, in the past, each analysis is if it were conventional compared to what the revenue stream would be in the pilot. Isn't that the usual analysis?
That's the analysis on an abatement by an abatement basis, but like in these policy reviews, I mean, you were in there, you know what I'm talking about. Like they did analysis on.
I don't know that's good enough.
It hasn't been done for the mayor's executive order, in fairness, and it's not been done for this legislation. So,
Okay, then,
Councilperson Robinson, Councilperson Waterman, Councilperson Gadsden.
Okay, so we have a clause in here that says the neighboring municipalities, including Bayonne. How did Bayonne do this legally?
That's what I got.
No, I'm asking you, right?
I haven't spoken to them.
No, Mike.
Mike, you wrote this.
Yeah, like how?
now let me explain this way. Okay, before I do that, Corporation Council, if this 2.5%, we say that, let me ask you this way then. How's your mayor's 10%? They say 10% the city of Jersey. So in other words, city of Jersey collected 10%. Whatever we collect, we're gonna share our shares at, what are they called?
The money to
Whatever we collect,
Yeah.
10% of that collection is gonna go to the schools.
Okay, then why don't we do this way? Then we
That's
use.
what the mayor's proposing.
Yeah, mayor is the
Clear.
purpose, but can we
Council
create?
gets the budget. and
Yeah.
so they can Change it.
Change that.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
So the mayor recommends a budget to you guys. His budget recommendation is gonna include some form of projection of what our pilot revenue is, it always does. And then 10% of that pilot revenue is gonna be recommended to be a gift to the school board.
He may make the abatement 12, 12.5%.
He could change the percentage.
He can make it 15%.
That's the
That flexibility still exists.
That still exists. But whatever we collect, 10% of that revenue will come in as a recommendation that it be given as a gift to the school board. Yeah, a gift. Right. But you guys as a council can say, nice idea, Mayor, but we want that money to stay here, or nice idea, Mayor, we want to give it all, or whatever you want to do. And then that'll get reviewed by local finance and everyone else, and they'll probably say yes or no. But
Councilperson Waterman has
Oh, yeah, okay.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Let's
Okay,
just move.
Councilman,
Because this, we got so much.
Okay, so now I guess no one knows what happened in Bayonne to make this legal?
Bayonne,
Bayonne didn't do it.
They did it,
Legally done, I mean.
I don't know if they passed it, but I don't know if they've included it in the budget yet. Because it's still happening now. It'll probably be included in the next budget.
So now, let me ask this one then.
When Tom DeGee sat where the council president is for 8 years, they approved a lot of abatements during the Schumler administration. When he became county executive, he had the state legislature pass laws to give 5% of what is collected in the abatements to the county.
Yes, he
So
did.
this is how it has to be done.
He passed laws.
He passed law.
laws.
He passed law.
Right, you got
At
the
the state
HUD
level.
on the state level.
Right, on the
Which is
state
where
level.
the.
That's why we're giving
abatement
5%
law
of the
exists.
county.
That's why, so it has to
And
be
that's the
done on
real
the
thing.
state.
But when he sat there as council president, he said, this is great, we're keeping all the money for the city, and we're not
Right.
contributing to the county and to the schools.
Right,
And that's
and he went to the.
That's
state.
how,
then-
that's why they're
He was
getting
fine with doing
5%.
that because he's looking out for the city.
Right, when he became county
But when he
executive, he
came
said,
down
where's my
exec, he was
taste?
looking out for the
Yes.
county.
That's right.
That's different
That's right.
constituencies.
But that, it was done through state legislation.
That would be the best way, that would be the best way to proceed.
It's not whatever. It's not 10%. It's basically saying we're going to look at the money that comes in from abatements, and we're going to give a portion of it to the schools, irregardless of the tax laws and anything else that may be. Now, the question is like, can you legally whatever do that? And you saying that I still have to figure that and find that out if that's feasible.
Well, what I'm saying is
in
there's no
determination
guidance.
right now, well, in terms of pilots, because he's taking whatever money's from it, 10% of that to go towards the school. So technically, right now, the mayor's executive order is.
He's the only one way.
It's an executive order, it's still valid. Yeah.
No, on how schools will receive the funding.
Oh, it would be a gift.
There's no mechanism.
We would have to do a gift allocation. It would be done through the budget process, and it would be, you would fund it, and then we would do a gift allocation.
And is it legal to give, as a gift, pilot money?
Well, it wouldn't be, it would be in the general fund. So pilot money moves into the general fund, and then this body decides how to spend it upon the recommendation of the mayor. So it's not direct, it wouldn't go from the pilot. Pilot goes into this big pound of money, and then you guys split it up.
Jeremy, then
Unless it's dedicated by rider.
That's very hard to get approval for.
2.5%. So city of Jersey, so instead to date, this one they say, we gotta pay 2.5%, pilot can pay to the Board of Ed. Instead we do that, the project pay 2.5% annual gross service to city of Jersey City. Then the money come from the general fund. Then from there, we can allocate the dollars to where they're gonna go.
Well, that's not what's in this ordinance now.
So can we amend like that?
You can?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Wednesday.
It would be a material change, though, so we would have to go back to the beginning.
I don't understand how that would be different from what's now.
What he's saying is instead of having a 2.5%, go to, they would have a recommendation.
Right now, the mayor has the opportunity to do that now. So you don't need an ordinance to do that.
We have to say we recommend that the mayor do this.
Yeah, so I don't see how that's different from what exists.
Executive order. We're gonna make sure 25% is go to the Board of Ed.
We're not clear on the 10%.
Just as,
So the question that's
so as the Corporation Council said, that the budget process will ultimately determine where that money gets into the hands of the schools. So the final say comes with this council, so whether there's an ordinance or not, we could amend the budget, whether there's an executive order or not, we can amend the budget and say, I want to put $100,000 as a gift to the schools.
That if we do that, we can have to not funding at all Board of Ed, but if we put in the ordinance, we have to give at least 2.5% annual growth.
You have to. You can't do that. That's the exact same problem we're in now. Whether it comes with the general fund or not, you're trying to circumvent the budget process. You're trying to tie your hands to the future in the budget process. You can't. You have to allow the budget process to take place.
Let me ask, just quickly, if anyone would like to answer this, council, what happens if the state then reduces our aid to the school directly related to that? Because their case is that if you're a district in need, then why don't you fund your schools? And if you start funding it, I just want to ask that question. I know that's not a question, it's really rhetorical. So that's all I ask. What are you going to do then? What do you do then?
100% agree. I don't know why we're proactively asking the state to reduce our funding, because that's what this is.
So now, let me ask this one.
Councilman Gadsden.
Yes.
I mean, because, well, we're in effect kind of like doing that right now with the mayor's executive order.
Well, I didn't vote for the mayor's executive.
I know.
That's right.
No one voted. So,
I
in essence, like right now what we have in play is we've already have projects right now that we voted on that basically is saying 10%, 10%. So one project is asking for about $12,000 every year. Another project's talking about $33,000. So, so that's already out there on the books. What you said was that the mayor at the end of the year, say year 18 or 19, when projects come online and they start paying taxes and all the rest of that the council is going to have to, the mayor's going to present a budget, and we're going to say, based on the money that has been collected and that have been a part of financial agreements and everything else that are already in play. The question I have is, the mayor's an executive order, but we've been voting on ordinances that have dedicated 10%.
Right.
Now that's following on that. Yes. So even though it's an order, you say that the mayor can say this, that, and the third, and then it's at his discretion if he can go. But legally, on law, on paper, what we've been voting on has been ordinances.
That's right.
So now we come as a council, we sit back and we say, well, based on what you said, 10% the mayor proposes this, but statute-wise, what's written is 95% goes towards the city, 5% goes towards the county, and everything else like that. So then we would have to have state and folks come in and say, can Jersey City take some of that pilot money out of that 95% and dedicate it, whatever, to the school? Now, when you start talking about state funding, there's two things that is the determining factors on why we receive state aid. Now, Jersey City Public Schools receives about a $600 million budget. $400 million of it comes from the state, and there's two determining factors: Jersey City's capacity to pay and the services that need to go towards the students. Now, over this past summer, Sweeney and everyone else have been down there saying, with Jersey City's capacity to pay, and this whole discussion is going to come about. 33% of the projects are masked because they're abated, so everyone's around the state is kind of like frustrated because they're actually funding Jersey City's education. Yes. So the drop in the bucket, even with the mayor's 10%, $10,000, $33,000. When you add up all the projects that are right now in 2017, it only amounts to about only amounts to about $100,000 in taxes. Right. Is the state really going to get teed off over $100,000? I doubt it, right? Yes. But the problem is,
you just said the analysis is one of the things is capacity to pay.
No, $100,000.
If you raise the money, it shows the capacity to pay.
Right.
No.
Right. We're just showing your hands in a poker game.
The capacity to pay may come in with how properties are assessed in Jersey City's whatever income taxes that we're going to be paying to the state. That's the determining factor on if we're gonna go up a little bit in school taxes, because we're gonna show that we are able to pay more in taxes to the state. So that's coming down the pike. But getting back to the mayors, you gotta really figure this out, because the only reason why I presented this is because of the ordinances and everything else that has been taking place. So once that was codified, that 10%, then, everything else is, the legality of it. You can speak to that.
And Joanne, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but so when the mayor passed the executive order, folks around the table here got excited. We presented an abatement, and there wasn't mention of the 10%. So people said, "Oh no, you have to include it in the ordinance because the mayor's executive order." And I explained then the very thing I'm saying now. This is not new. I've been saying this for a very long time. And at the time, everyone said, "No, no, no, we want it in the ordinance." So what we did is we put it in as a whereas statement. Just so you understand, when you guys adopted ordinance, the whereas statement is not codified. The whereas statements is just express extensions and its explanation. So what you've actually been adopting is just the terms of the ordinance and the authority to sign the underlying agreement. So I just want to be clear about that, so that because what we've been trying to do is always preserve the budget process, which is the only way you guys can allocate money, because you guys asked for it.
Councilman Yu.
Yes, thank you very much, Helga. Okay, now, this is what it is. This state school funding for the city of Jersey City will be changed starting 2018. If we not proact for that matter of cutting, then what we're gonna be end of day, regular taxpayer will be, they are the only one pay carrying difference. But we build up to this system, so when they state cut their school funding city of Jersey City, and there will be, then we're gonna be fair share from any future pilot program will contribute.
No.
I'm sorry?
No, we're going up just regular without homeowners pay.
No, if the homeowners pay, but if we not bring up to this ordinance, then we are the only one pay for school tax.
No, because you can do it retroactively the other way. If the state decides to take away our state aid, you can then take pilot income and apply it to the school district if you wanted to. So you could have the same, solution.
We have $8 million short.
Okay. I think we're talking in circles. Okay.
2007
I think it's all been said.
2018, we expect around $20 million well short. If we not build the system now, the difference will be regular taxpayer have to carry on. Oh God.
Why don't we do this, like moving forward, because we already let the cat out the bag. Why not don't put the mayor's 10% inside of the tax abatements and everything else that's coming up? Like, don't put it in and just have the mayor say, well, I made a commitment to take 10% and at your permission, and let that go towards the school. Why put it in to what we vote on as a council? Like, why put it in?
I don't disagree with you on that.
Right.
And I actually
You
prefer
shouldn't
this ordinance to the executive order in theory.
Because then if,
I don't necessarily agree with any of them, but if I had to choose between the two, I'd probably choose this one. But what I don't understand is the financial impact, and then I feel like I hate to be like a stickler, but like, this is important, guys. I mean,
We need the financial analysis.
like, just to level set where we are, the Republican Congress is about to just get rid of tax deductions, right? You don't think that's gonna hurt Jersey City? We're about to go through a revow. You don't think that's gonna hurt Jersey City? They're gonna cap the amount that you can deduct of interest on your house. You don't think that's gonna hurt Jersey City? The new governor, from what I hear, the tax incentives to move people from New York, which has traditionally been going to Jersey City and Newark, that's going to get spread throughout the state, so that's less tax incentives for building to be going here. And now we're going to mess with abatements on top of it without a financial analysis. And just to like finish my point, the stock market is on a run the longest time since the 90s when it crashed in 2000 and the 20s when it crashed in 1929. Like, these are a lot of variables hitting at once to not even have done a financial analysis.
Right.
That's why you didn't run again.
Great.
I mean, last thing you said before this, skill, like, there's two things. Either, make it up, either mayor, whatever, it gets kicked out of, like, get out of all these ordinances or whatever that you vote on in the future, or what's the, why not 12.5% inside of the ordinance that we vote on moving forward to go towards the public schools? That's the, I mean, that's the only way, like, you know, that's what, the way I'm looking at it.
So you're saying, ask the mayor, or tell the mayor to raise it from 10 to 12.5, executive order?
Or either that way too, because only three, but either way, there's still no precedent to say that this can be done from the jump.
So the council could still,
try things and
the
then-
council at the end of the day could still do this by a budget process.
That's right.
Like on its own, like, we wouldn't even have to ask the mayor, we could just do it if the council wanted to do it, it could be done.
That's right, you don't have to ask them.
Right. So.
When you say financial, so which financial?
They did, every time, when we did the abatements before, the abatement, like when we changed it from like, okay, downtown, you can only have 5 years in zone one or whatever, they did a financial impact analysis. The FW, or whatever that group is, they did like a whole presentation.
We pay for that.
Yeah, but we should, this is important enough.
Folks,
Or can you get a clear, can you use abated money to go towards the school if it's not present? Right now it's 95 and 5, but the basic question is with executive order or this or ordinance, can you use abated money to go towards the schools? Because it's currently not in state statute.
You answered the question. The answer is yes, but it's not like you can dedicate it. You pass, the abated monies come into the, it's confusing. So it's like, I didn't learn this overnight either. So this is what happens. The abated money comes in, you put it in the general fund for the entire city. Then the council decides how to spend that money. So you can then take that 10% of that amount and do that. Can you make it, can you?
His point is this. I think the point that you're trying to make, if I can, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think the point he's trying to make is, if we voted on things and it said, blah, 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 percent's gonna go to the school system, and then, because it's quote unquote the budget process, let's just say the council says 0 goes to the school system, does the school system have right to sue us?
Well, the answer to that is they will certainly try. I don't know that they would succeed. I would suggest they wouldn't, but you never know.
so we can allocate that money however we want. We have an example of the buy-up dollars, right? We set aside some money. I mean, but it was precarious, right? Like, so if a new council came in and that money was still sitting there, we said we would spend it on youth and educational programming and so forth. It went to the youth court. It went to different youth activities, the summer jobs. But because this council and this administration was committed to ensuring that those monies they were set aside essentially in a separate account and segregated in that sense, and then we spent it down. But if we didn't spend it down and it went to a new council and there was someone else that came in and said, you know what, I want to spend it on, yeah.
This question also assumes that the council has already decided that it wants to fund this school system. That's what you're saying. And I don't know if that's clear yet, because I've heard opinions here that they may not want to fund the school system.
We're gonna conclude debate here.
Hey, can we just have a yes and no vote on, please stay on this?
All right.
We'll get, let me just make everyone else had I'm gonna ask, I want to get on the record on this, okay? And I'm not looking for comment on it, it's fine. I agree with the councilwoman and Osborne and everyone else that mentioned it about fiscal analysis, and we should request that for NW Financial to do the analysis on what sort of policy we'll have there as it allocates the money. There's already a commitment, I think, to revisit the tax abatement policy as it stands, and that can be part of the whole abatement policy and fiscal analysis in that whole setting. The second thing I'd say is I hate the idea of the blank check. I made that comment known when the mayor had an executive order back then, and I stand by it, whether it's this ordinance or his executive order. The blank check idea is terrible. We should have strategic goals, I think, that align with the Jersey City Public Schools.
and we should fund those priorities around that. The third thing that I wanted to bring up about it was that, and it hasn't really been discussed at all, I think, is charter schools. And I know other people have different ideas on that, but like there's the constant debate about charter schools and whether they would be funded and whether they're adequately funded. And so we're creating another funding mechanism that may or may not fund them adequately. And as it stands right now, it's up in the air. And what else would I say about it? I'm sure there's like 2 or 3 other things, and I've forgotten my points at this point. But
Is my financial analysis going to be requested
I
for
don't know,
Wednesday
I
night?
don't know exactly what
requested.
What is this analysis that we're looking for? I don't know I don't understand it, because if it's 2.5% extra, there is no analysis.
Copy of that financial analysis, what the mayor is at 10% to show.
Well, I was going to request
on this one.
Right. We didn't get it from the first one, so we just want this.
Yeah, is mayor do that, the 10% for any gross revenue?
Both.
I like the copy of it. Probably he's not just doing that the way.
No, we didn't request one.
That's what we're saying.
So nobody's requested one. Guys, we gotta request this stuff.
You have to.
And also, Caucus and council.
If it was my ordinance, I would have requested it.
Right, there's certain things you
So
gotta
offense.
do.
Vote on it? What is that?
Yes.
Just put one syllable.
I can't.
You use it all the time you can.
No.
Guys, Joyce has been waiting. Guys, Joyce has been waiting to say something. No, but Joyce has been waiting.
No, she wants a different ordinance.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Alright.
So,
I just
another
wanted to
second
ask
reading
one
ordinance
question.
4P.
4P, because I know I had concerns about Zone 3 with the commercial center and,
Allowing houses of worship. in permitted
right,
use.
everywhere except for the ground floor.
I got somebody
So
standing
now,
on the corner. Excuse me.
okay, so what will happen to the worship houses that's already on the ground floor in the commercial
Well, they would
areas?
be grandfathered in. The way zoning works is changes only go forward. So the ones that are there now would be grandfathered in.
And what about if they remodel or something like that? Would they have to, what will happen in that case? Because I know of a situation that a church was told, because they wanted to,
Only
because they,
2060.
would you let me talk?
Yeah, no?
Because of the commercial, because they own a commercial corridor, and they wanted to remodel, but they can't, the worship service can't be on the first floor any longer. They said they had to bring it up to the second floor.
I don't know if.
And that was in Jackson Hill.
If they're just.
This is in Jackson Hill. This does not apply to Jackson Hill.
Okay, tell me.
No, this doesn't apply. This is just
Place at Journal
Square.
2060. Journal Square.
Now,
Only affect Journal Square.
now,
Yes.
the place that talk about remodeling, unless they had issues where they were actually trying to expand the size, or they changed handicap entrances or something structural to the building, if they just redecorated inside, they shouldn't have been told they're allowed to do that.
But this is,
Structure change. Let's say they wanted to go up.
but this is not applicable to them at all.
Oh, I just, because this is a question that they asked me though.
Yeah, they're increasing
And they
the
had that
capacity,
problem.
so they probably try to increase their, what do they call it, their occupancy number.
And so then they could
Then-
no longer be on the first
Yeah,
floor,
now
then
you're
they would have to go to the second.
But to Joyce's point, and I brought this up when I voted aye for introduction,
Right.
but to the point that you made, like, I don't understand why we're blocking churches from first
Right, I
floors. To
can't-
me,
I
it doesn't
can't get
seem
it.
right, like, in general, like it's, well, but you have, like, you have other professional services there, and it's if the idea is that you, like, unless you're totally restricting it to retail, and then I could maybe
Right.
understand the argument, but if you're allowing professional services, people are going in there all the time, the same way people are going into churches all the time, and I just worry about the line of restriction.
Any type of service.
Like doctor's offices or something. Like if you said straight retail, I would understand it, but it doesn't say straight retail. Yeah, exactly.
But it says not at all.
It doesn't say just straight retail, or I would agree with it.
I'm not that comfortable with that except, even, I'm just not, because it's restricting us. And you don't know what
Yeah,
the
it
future's
allows,
gonna
like,
hold.
other
The reason why I
stuff,
say
but it allows
that, because when the
tennis
market
and-
went down, a lot of
That's where I think
retailers
it's, like,
had to
kinda-
rent out, because church is the only one that was renting.
And talk about it.
You can.
We'll bring in the planner again for second reading on this. And she was here earlier. Tanya was the, I think, the planner on this.
Fair question, I mean.
Because what happened when the market crashed and things went down, people who own property, no one could rent. So what they start doing is renting to churches on the first floor.
That was happened in certain areas,
Yes,
over the years.
they
That's
sure
what we
did.
know about it.
They
I know it
did.
did,
But-
but it's,
But I'm just saying, we don't know what will
that's
happen,
what,
but it will restrict them, and then they would have to
Yeah,
go
I
through
think
this
that
again.
Tanya was saying that night, I'll bring her in on Wednesday, but she was saying that they were trying to.
This one Only for Jonas Square 26 quarter. Let them have it.
But I'm still,
The
you're
idea
saying
was that, the
happens.
idea was that
It
they,
really only applies to zone 3.
yeah, they wanted to make sure that there was still activity on the street, 7 nights a week.
Yeah, but the
I
difference.
understand that.
But what is it? But so I gotta argue with that when a professional service is allowed, but a church isn't, because I think a professional service is probably gonna have more activity on the street than a professional service 7 days a week.
What about that? The ADA.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Exactly.
Right.
If their reasoning is that they want to keep activity on the street, if it's a professional service and their doctors aren't open until 11 o'clock at night.
They're not open on Saturdays.
It's open at 11 o'clock at night.
Right.
They're
Doctor's
not.
offices open up at 11 o'clock.
No, they're not. That's
They're
the
not.
point we're making. A church is more likely to be open on the ground level than a professional services.
In the evening, for sure.
But first,
I don't know what the argument for the evening. I would want that, like, throughout the day, right? Commercial.
Churches are always open throughout the day. I mean, that's the whole thing.
No, they're not. No, they're not. Yeah.
Not the storefront.
During the daytime versus the evening time.
It's a
You
balance.
know, it's a balance.
Yeah, and
That's all.
maybe this is too strong.
It is too strong. I'm telling you, to restrict, the word restricting is too strong a word.
We should move on.
Yeah. 4E? All right. Everyone's knocked
Corporation
out.
Council, I just have one quick question.
Yes.
As a owner of a liquor license, I can't vote on this, right?
conflict?
Owner of a liquor license.
I think you're fine.
I think you're fine. I think you're fine. Because it's not gonna benefit you individually as individual. It's benefiting a whole class of people. You're fine. Yeah. But if you're not comfortable, you can abstain.
You can abstain if you
But
want.
you're fine. But I don't think it's a conflict.
Any other questions on second readings? Okay, let's move on to resolutions.
Oh, resolutions. We did a lot of them. 10A is an emergency, an appropriation transfer. And you'll see a new one because I've just been collecting all of the bills that the city's gonna have to pay for last week's runoff election. And they'll be included in there as well. B is authorized.
Okay, let me, I haven't seen this before this meeting, didn't come to the agenda meeting. So the from accounts, from engineering and traffic down to salary adjustment, can we get a clarification on what's going on there? Why?
Often this is just cleanup at the end of the year, because you can only make these changes in the last 3 months of the year, so. It,
10A.
but I'll ask John Metro about it, but that's usually what's done at the end of the year.
Sanitation.
I want clarification on, I guess the salary adjustment, 1.5 million particularly. Police,
1.5.
475. I mean, I guess I could live with the other salary the other salary lines, but.
So, great. That this year, 2017, our budget has a huge amount of salary adjustment, around that $2 million which had because of that. Bob Kay mentioned that certain union country will not settle yet because of that. So now, probably the union country, if we settle, I don't know what happened that. They settle is the 1.5 million is a move to the other place, but we have to know.
What is that salary adjustment? Yeah, what is that? It says operating expense, but it's salary adjustment. Is that what it is?
It's just from.
No,
I mean,
no.
that's the from category, and the other one is too.
Yes. Salary adjustments, that's what the Bob
It
Kay.
means that this money was allocated to make a salary adjustments, and it wasn't used. And now it's being transferred to everything that's in that right-hand column. So you can see accumulated absences. So whoever said that was correct. It's being moved from giving salary adjustment out, which would mean an increase in salary for someone, and it's been moved to be in a reserve account for accumulated absences. What happens is at the end of this year, in 20 days, how many days we have left of the year, this will be over. You won't be able to spend any of this money, and it'll be kept for a year. So what the budget office does is right before the end of the year, it moves it into other accounts so that next year, if these accounts need to be used, they can be used for these purposes. So if somebody retires in this year, this accumulated absence fund can be charged to that.
One at a time.
That's what
One
this
at
is
a time.
about.
Councilperson Osborne?
So, I mean, like, the short version of this, right, the vast majority is that you took a reserve for salary adjustments, and you said, we're not gonna use it, we're gonna throw it in accumulated absences, and you took some extra that wasn't used for fire and police and redistributed out to a few other departments.
Exactly, because there might be bills in those offices that haven't been paid
But most of it's
in
salary and
2017.
wages.
But most likely, all of this will not be spent and be in that reserve account for a year. Then, at the end of next year, it'll come back into the general fund.
Most of the two column, salary and wages, which indicates an over expenditure, right? Overtime possibly, right?
No, it represents an over budgeting.
Under budget.
No, we, most of the,
Giving them more money to cover
What might be, that's right, what might be.
overtime and,
Right, could be. That's right.
Dollars, it's okay to just we guessing, but what we call it the budget officer, John Metro maybe.
I will, I'll have them come on
Tomorrow,
Wednesday.
the Wednesday.
But I mean, there's only 20 days left of the year. This money is not gonna be spent.
Yeah, we understand.
Except for the money that I'm going to ask for to.
I'm gonna try to make my
money, I
my
want
comments known on this
My
on the
money.
record. So my problem with this, I've raised this in the past, is that if we're covering over
expenditures that weren't budgeted for, and people were giving excessive overtime and things like that, rather than cover for it, this leaving their deficit because it would carry over into their next budget cycle, and they would operate from an operating deficit and starting there, and they would know that we would send the message that they got to learn to deal with it, work within their budget, right? And so, and the other thing, second point I want to make is that we've talked about increasing the funding for tenant-landlord relations, and we talk about rent control and violations and things like that are going on in these buildings, slumlords, and we haven't appropriated that money this year, and that office desperately needs to get some sort of increase in there to be able to address all of the needs that are out there right now.
To the last council meeting, the last couple of months ago, we removed the money from the sanitation, like $100,000, putting it the automotive service department. So now we're gonna put another 310 sanitation, which is a take of money for the months ago. I don't know why these things happen. And another one, automotive service, we give to them $100,000 last time, and they want $160,000 more. So we want to know that.
These are not these are not requests. This is done by the budget office. So, DPW most likely doesn't know that these movements are happening. So let's just have John Metro answer your questions, rather than, as you said, rather than me guess. Why don't we just have John tell you?
Okay, B, we're authorizing the insertion of special items of revenue and appropriations, so that means we received grants since our budget adoption. C is requesting a change in title, text, or amount of appropriation pursuant to the statute. D, you all signed a certification that you received the audit, and this is a resolution certifying compliance with the audit law requiring the governing body of every local unit to have made an annual audit of books, accounts, and financial transactions. E is a resolution authorizing the circulation of a preliminary official statement and final official statement in connection with the sale of the city's bond anticipation notes, series 2018A, in the amount of 17 million. We have an extra number in there. I think it's 734,000, and approving a continuing disclosure certificate with respect to said notes.
So great. That's what we're gonna plan to 2018, $70 million bond?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a plan too?
I don't know for a fact. I'll have to find out. You sell anticipation notes because you intend to spend it. The bond could be larger. So the authorization of the bond could be more than 17 million, but the BA and Donna Mauer believes that they only need 17 million in notes right now. So a note and a bond is similar but not the same.
Tomorrow, it's a Wednesday meeting, right?
Yeah, sure, I'll
Okay,
get it.
please, okay.
I'll ask them. You know, Johnny Metro might know the answer too.
F is a resolution authorizing the acceptance of a grant award from the Hudson County Open Space Trust Fund for the Jersey City Free Public Library Improvement Project. Mercifully, G through J have been done. K is a resolution of the Municipal Council authorizing an Affordable Housing Trust Fund contract with Martin Luther King Urban Renewal Associates, LP, Jackson Green Scattered Sites. L is authorizing the award of competitively bid contract to Housing Partnership Development to provide first-time homebuyer counseling and training. M was done earlier. N is authorizing a settlement agreement with the Department of Environmental Protection, PPB Industries Incorporated, and the Jersey City Municipal Utilities Authority for the area known as Hudson County Chrome Site 65. O is a resolution authorizing the settlement of the lawsuit of Robert G. Cirillo versus the City of Jersey City et al. P, Q, and R authorize the business administrator to execute discharges of mortgages at 188 Pine Street, 77 Van Nostrand Avenue, and 292 Webster Avenue. S is a resolution appointing Anthony Esposito as the City of Jersey City's tax search officer. T is authorizing the payment of $7,000 to Zinc Investments LLC in connection with the tax sale certificate affecting Lot 3 and Block 21701, also known as Greenwich Drive. U is a resolution to cancel 2017 real estate taxes on Block 12302, Lots 2, 3, and 9, assessed in error. V is granting veterans exemptions from local property taxation pursuant to the statute. W is a resolution to cancel 2016 real estate taxes on Block 1000, Lot 43, qualifier C0302 due to an erroneous added assessment.
I'm gonna go back to T. I'm sorry.
No problem.
T? T. So T, this is, this, who's paying for this tax sale certificate? The city's paying, the city's paying
To Zinc Investments, $7,000.
So just to settle the whole issue of, because the residents on the streets eventually want the street rededicated back, want it dedicated, and the problem was that there was some issues between ownership, between two owners. One owner, I forget the name.
I think the issue here is really that it is a street. The developer didn't dedicate it back to the city. So they were paying taxes as if it was private property being used for a private purpose. And then they realized, wait a minute, we're paying for a street, which they were obligated to do because they didn't dedicate it back, which is one of the mechanisms we used to force them to dedicate it back. They stopped paying. And then what happened is we sold a tax lien on it, a tax certificate on it, which means now if you don't pay off that tax certificate, the owner of that, after a certain period of time, can have a right to buy the property. And because we want it to be a street, we had to clear title to it so that we can have it dedicated back to us. So that's the plan here. But first we have to clear title. Okay?
Up to X, resolution to cancel 2017 real estate taxes on city-owned condominium units due to exemption pursuant to the statute. Y through Z6 were done earlier, as was the entire next page except Z15. It's authorizing the extension of an agreement between the City of Jersey City and P&A Administrative Services, Inc. for a period of 1 month to administer the flexible spending account, COBRA, and retiree billing. Z16 was done. Z17 is authorizing an agreement between the City of Jersey City and Moni Life Insurance Company of America to provide life insurance for management employees as an extraordinary unspecifiable service. Z18 is a resolution authorizing a professional services agreement with McManaman, Scotland, and Bauman to provide legal counsel, bond counsel to the City of Jersey City. Z19 likewise authorizes an agreement with Archer and Griner to provide bond counsel services to the City of Jersey City, as does Z20. Gluck Walrath LLP to provide bond counsel services to the City of Jersey City. Z21 is a professional services agreement with McCusker, Anselmi, Rossin, and Carvelli to represent the city in a matter of the estate of Levon King versus the City of Jersey City.
Jermaine, Councilman.
I just need some explanation. 18 through 20 is all bond counseling.
That's coming out of actually the Risk Management Office. And so basically they put out an RFP. Every person that responded, they authorized to become bond counsel, and he's entering into a contract, but he'll use them on an as-needed basis if he decides to bond. That's all he's doing.
Why is the price different for, I think 20 is 125, 125K, the other two was 75?
Those are just typos. I'll have those looked at tomorrow. 125 is no, oh no, sorry.
No, it's an up to.
An up to, those were up tos, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one, because Donna Maurer uses that Gluck Walrath for her legal advice for bonds. The others are probably risk management. That's why the numbers are different.
Two bond counsel, they ask not exceed $750,000. But last one, they ask $150,000. That's what he mentioned today. So make sure that if he's a service provider, same service bond counsel, then they should be, price have to be same.
Oh, they are, the price the same per hour. It's, but it's the
Yeah,
up
the
to.
yeah. I'm sorry?
Those are not to exceed numbers in the contract, which means they can't come back to you. I'm sorry, they can't use them beyond the not to exceed number without coming back to you.
So that's two companies that is 75,000, but the other company 150,000. Why the other companies?
Because Donna, as the BA explained, Donna Maurer is using them, so it's more services.
Right.
Yeah.
Z22 we did.
But in fairness, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at it more closely. The rates are different.
They are?
Looks like Archer and Griner is at 75 to 150 per hour, and for RAB financing, 70, okay, it's different types of services, it looks like.
Different services, yeah.
Okay, they're different services. Similar, bond stuff, but different. Oh, no, RAB financing, no, they're both doing RAB financing, and one does it from 75 to 325, and the other one does it from 180 to 325.
I'll have it looked at.
Can I ask a question about 20? I know, you're all like, just go, Candace, you're almost done. Why are you even asking questions? I'm sure that's what y'all were thinking. But I'm gonna ask anyway. So all these workers' compensation claim petitions, like, why are they going to different companies? Because it would seem to me that you'd want like economies of scale there.
Which number are you talking about?
Like 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. Why wouldn't you pull that so that you get some kind of economies?
We use different counsel for different things, but we do get economies. The way workers' comp works is, it's done on a cycle of 3. It's a complicated structure, but basically when comp counsel goes for a calendar call, they bundle all of their cases on that calendar call. So we do use them to get different economies, and we've actually put in place a strategy which has dramatically decreased our exposure and cost and comp. But basically, depending on where the comp court is, whether it's in county or out of county, we use different law firms. And then also we have to have some conflict counsel in there and things of that nature.
Okay, Z23, Z24, Z25, Z26, and Z27 all provide for professional services agreements to provide defense counsel related to workmen's compensation claims. Z25 is Jason, Lamparello, Mallon, and Capuzzo. Z26, Florio and Kenny. Z27, Netchert, Deneen, and Hillman.
Sorry, go ahead, keep going.
Z28, resolution celebrating Dolores Louise Alston Curtis on the occasion of her 80th birthday. Z29, celebrating Dativa B. Santos on the occasion of her 70th birthday. Z30, we're waiving the 20 days on ordinance 17165 due to a presence of an emergency.
That ordinance that we're waiving it for is the one enabling the sale of liquor for extended hours during the holidays. It's just
Earlier, Z32 is a professional services agreement with Upper Zace, McDermott, Masterlin, Murphy to represent the city in various union negotiations. Z33 is a professional services agreement with Riker, Danzig, Scherer, Highland, Peretti, LLP to provide legal services to the city in connection with preserving the intended purpose of Liberty State Park.
Can't you explain a little more?
Yeah, this is a new one that's being added on. Basically, we've all heard that the governor is trying to build another marina in Liberty State Park, which, is being done hastily. And so we're hiring this law firm to look in to see if we or the residents have any rights involved in that matter, particularly whether proper notice was given, whether proper real haste, whether proper environmental precautions have been taken. They're going to look into this and make some recommendations to us rapidly. Okay? Okay. All right.
There's no resolution recognizing me for getting all the seconds in that one council meeting when I got all the seconds, so I don't even know why that's not on here. So that must be a mistake.
Council members. Well,
There's no resolution recognizing me for getting all the seconds.
Right.
Let's go.
Okay.
Margaret was just pointing out to me that she had done 3 resolutions for the Ancient Order of the Hibernians. That might have accounted for the error that I see, but regardless, Z34 is going to be the award of a competitively bid contract to Document Preprocessors of New York, Inc. for disaster recovery and digitization of document services. Z35, we're paying a claim to them, Document Preprocessors, for providing emergency data processing services to recover documents and files damaged by Hurricane Sandy. This was negotiated by John McKinney in the law department. And we spoke about Z36 earlier.
How much we so far spend the digital document?
All right.
I think that we spend more than $2 million so far. We understand.
Yeah.
How much?
Motion by Councilman Waterman, we'll give you the second.
Hold on.
Councilman
Robert, before we...
I get all the seconds.
Yes.
Council President,
Thank you.
do me a favor.
We have a motion, non-debatable.
Before we do
Non-debatable.
that, yeah, non-debatable.
Woods, we had a second.
We make
Councilman
sure that
Gajewski
we
is
keep the
absent.
resolution,
Councilman Gadsden.
The Chris Gaston and
Bajiano.
Candice was one.
Yun. To adjourn, Yun.
4 years.
To adjourn, Yun. To adjourn, Osborne.
Do that.
To adjourn, Robinson.
Yeah.
To adjourn, Councilman Rivera, absent. Councilperson Waterman.
Thanks, everyone.
Council President. We are done. We are out of here.